Okay, welcome everybody to the last meeting of the 2019-2020 school year. It had some bumps we could not have predicted, but we're here, we're at the finishing line. So before we begin, of course, I want to take the time to recognize and acknowledge the Songhees Nation, a Esquimalt nation upon whose traditional territories we live, we learn, and we do our work. And certainly, you know, on a beautiful spring evening, I feel like an exceptionally grateful settler to be living uninvited on these territories, and really thankful for the people who've lived here all these years, and very want to express my respect and gratitude. My children are not yet asleep, everyone out there. So I'm hoping they're gonna leave me alone. We've got a very full agenda tonight, and so I hope everybody can be mindful of that as we go along. And lots of really important business, which is definitely worth taking the time to do right. At the same time, we don't want to be here at 11 o'clock if we can help it. So our first order of business would be approval of the agenda, and I expect we have some additions and changes. Trustee Ferris? Get out of here. Sorry.
Thank you. I just wanted to note that at C2A, I have not one report, but two trustee reports.
Strawberries.
Thank you.
Trustee Whitaker?
Thank you. Under trustee reports as well, I would like to change mine to, instead of being trustee Whitaker, be trustee Duncan is going to present the report for us on behalf of advocacy.
And that's at C2C?
Yeah.
Okay. Trustee McNally?
Yes, C2 whatever. I just want to say a couple of words about my Indigenous Nations Education Council report, which I sent in but neglected to copy our recording secretary.
So we'll put you at C2E. I'm sorry, Trustee McNally, that I didn't realize that.
Thank you.
Trustee Ryan Painter?
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to add under C2 as well, my committee report for the District GSA Committee. Thank you.
Great. And so you will be at F.
Thank you.
Trustee Leonard?
I'd like to remove D2B number 1, the first motion under the Ops Policy and Planning Committee meeting. Due to the number of amendments that were forwarded yesterday and today, I believe this is more suited to go back to the Ops Committee for wordsmithing, because I think it's really, it's good, would be difficult to do normally, but in this kind of a Zoom thing, it might be next to impossible. So that's my recommendation, to remove that from the agenda tonight.
I'd like to vote on that separately.
Okay, let's, are there any other amendments? And we'll deal with that one separately. I just have to go between two screens, so I don't want to rush us along, but I don't want to miss anybody either. Okay, so I need a mover and a seconder for the agenda approval as amended. Trustee Ryan Painter is moving it, and Trustee Tom Ferris is seconding it. I wish there was a way that I could put all the trustees in one line. Instead, you're on 2 pages. Let's all flip back and forth. Okay, all those in favor? And I believe that's unanimous. If I call something unanimous or otherwise out of order, please speak up so that we can ensure a correct record. So our next amendment to the agenda is to remove the first motion at D2B so that it can go back to committee for further discussion at that table. Trustee Leonard moved that. Do we have a seconder? Trustee McNally, thank you. Okay, any discussion? Trustee Whitaker?
I don't approve that. I think that the amendments that I have put forward to change are mostly cleaning up the document. They don't change any of the real what is occurring within the document. It's neater. It makes each section the same as the other one. And I do actually think that we can pass this tonight with those amendments. And I am hopeful that we can get started in the fall on the superintendent's evaluation rather than putting this off again for another year. So those are my thoughts on that.
Thank you, Trustee Whitaker, Trustee McNally, and then Trustee Ryan Painter.
Thank you. I support removal because this is the critical policy for our district. We've never had a superintendent's evaluation policy, and it's worthwhile going back again to deal with my amendments as well, which are extensive. I would really hate to see, Trustee Whitaker's, which are awesome, I'm sure, but I think so are mine, of course. So we need to consider more input, and yeah, so I'm in favor of postponing this motion.
Hey, Trustee Ryan Painter.
Thank you, Chair. I would just echo Trustee Whitaker's sentiments. I don't personally have an issue with passing this tonight. I just see it as a cleaning up and tweaking some of the higher detail points. I really don't see an issue with passing this here tonight. I think it's something we can do.
Are there any other speakers to the motion? Trustee Hensa and then Trustee Leonard.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm not sure. Is the motion to refer it back to the policy committee or to the ops committee?
To ops.
My only concern is that it's not just Trustee Whitaker's amendments, her changes to be moved as one amendment, but then there's further changes moved by Trustee McNally. And so I don't know that it's as easy as just let's pass this all as one, because there's two competing bundles of changes. I also don't want to see this drag on too much longer, so I'm torn.
Trustee Leonard.
That was my point. When we had one set of documents come from one trustee, it was an easier fix than it was when we had two sets of documents coming from two different trustees. Hence my conversation with the chair as the two members of the committee to say, I think that this needs to go back to ops again. And that's why we were asking you to table it to ops September meeting even. We can have it done by then.
As the chair who would have to navigate through all of these very many amendments, I'm in favor of sending it back to ops where we can do it in a smaller group where we're a little more nimble. So that's my 2 cents, Trustee Duncan, and then we'll call the question.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I like doing this one. I would like to see us get this done. I think we're past due at this point. I'm a little concerned that we will find ourselves in a similar situation as we did last time at ops, where there was a series of amendments being made. It became a little bit, I think, confusing for folks. And I was hopeful that we could, with the amendments on the floor from the two trustees who have taken the time to go through the document, with those amendments, we could go through in a methodical way and get it done at the board and implement it. But, colleagues who have reservations and feel that a better place to do that is at ops. I'm just not sure that given our past experience at ops with the document that it'll get done.
Yes, I hear your concern. It's fair. Hopefully ops won't have quite as significant as the agenda, because it's just hard to race through so many edits. Anyways, the majority rules on this, and I'm happy to guide us through the edits tonight, if that's the choice. So I'll call the question. All those in favor of moving it to ops, or removing it from the agenda, essentially? All those opposed? Okay, so I have Trustee Duncan, Trustee Ryan Painter, and Trustee Whitaker opposed, and the rest were in favor, so the motion carries. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. Okay, so now we're moving to the minutes of our May 25th meeting. Are there any questions, comments, corrections? It's on page 11 of the packet. Okay, seeing none, could I have somebody move approval? Thank you, Trustee Ferris, Trustee Duncan. All those in favor of the minutes as presented? And that is unanimous. Thank you so much, trustees. Next, we are moving to business arising from the minutes. Does trustees have anything they want to bring forward? Seeing none, we don't have any student achievements tonight. Although, shout out to all of our graduating students and those getting ready for their transitions. So next I get to recognize our Associate Superintendent Greg Kitchen, who is leaving the district. It's nice to see your smiling face, Greg. That's always how I remember you. You really bring a positive attitude, and I appreciate that. So just a few words here about Greg, who took his teacher training at UBC from 1980 to 1986. During this time, he also played university football. He was even drafted by the BC Lions and played the preseason with them in 1984. Things I didn't know. Greg began his teaching career at Golden Secondary School in Golden, BC, becoming assistant vice principal by January 1988. In addition to this, he was athletic director and physical education department head. By 1989, Greg was vice principal at Pleasant Valley Secondary School in Armstrong, BC. And by 1993, he was principal of Eagle River Secondary School in Sicamous. I did a lot of moving around. In 1997, Greg went back to Pleasant Valley in Armstrong as principal. Then he moved to be principal of Salmon Arm Senior Secondary School in 2004, during which time there was restructuring and amalgamation with 3 different Salmon Arm schools. And Greg became the principal of the newly created school known as Salmon Arm Secondary. And that's where he remained from 2005 to 2011. Greg then became the assistant superintendent of schools for Sunshine Coast School District in 2012. As well, in 2012, Greg was inducted into the BC Football Hall of Fame. Who knew? By 2015, one can only imagine that the great adventure of the 1 hour and 38-minute trek that includes tolls had become quite tiresome, and Greg was ready to expand his horizons. At this point, Greg applied to our school district and became one of our assistant superintendents that fall. Greg has done tremendous work with our district, and especially with pathways and partnerships, supporting many excellent connections and opportunities for our students. I think Greg really is a relational leader and was able to create those partnerships that made things happen for a lot of kids. And so we're sure grateful for that. Greg was also instrumental in coordinating the tremendous effort to transform our school food program and during the COVID shift that happened. And I heard at one point we were feeding more families in SD 61 than any school district in the country. And that really is Greg's leadership. So thank you so much for making that happen for our families. We're grateful for all you have done. We're going to miss you. And we miss you, wish you the very best on your next adventure. So thanks so much, Greg. And if I was there in person, I would be presenting you with some flowers, but I hope they arrived safely anyhow, or you got a plant and flowers, yay. So on behalf of the board, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Like, there he is, like Vanna White. Thanks, Greg. And keep in touch. Now we move on to our community presentation. So I'm going to invite Jennifer Chambers, who's our district counselor, to speak next. We have the presentations to the board are 5 minutes. Given Zoom is just a bit of a slightly stranger environment, I'm not going to be too tight on that. But if you see me doing the wind it up signal, welcome, Jennifer. Thank you so much for joining us, and please go ahead.
Thank you. Well, this is so strange because, needless to say, done a lot of Zooms lately, and then suddenly at home, my Wi-Fi went in my house and I've had to go onto my phone, and I actually haven't done a Zoom on my phone before. So good learning, always helpful. Don't want to make it boring. So thank you. For those of you that I don't know, my name is Jennifer Chambers. I'm a member of the GVTA, and I've worked as a classroom teacher for over 20 years in Greater Victoria School District, and I'm currently the secondary district counselor. In my position as district counselor for the last 5 years, I continue to work with the most vulnerable youth in our community, supporting counselors in our schools, and I promote mental health initiatives and lead our violent threat risk assessment and critical incident teams. I understand that over the last few weeks, there have been a variety of motions passed by our trustees connected to the future role of police liaison officers in our schools. I'm concerned that such important potential changes have been considered with little or no important consultation with the individuals that actually interact consistently with police liaison officers in our schools. I'm going to take the next 5 minutes to give you an insight into my perspective, and I urge the trustees to look at the data in our district, talk to staff and students that work with these liaison officers, and lastly, spend time with these individuals in our schools so that your assessment is based on fact instead of speculation. I feel I'm in a unique position to discuss the role of police liaison officers, as I meet with all of them regularly and consistently support schools and our liaison officers with emerging school crises. It is important to note that my involvement is with police in secondary schools. They play big roles in our middle and elementary schools as well, but that environment isn't my lived experience. This is what I know. Our police liaison officers have unique training to support the sensitive work they do in our schools. We have ministry mandated processes that require trained police involvement. And lastly, we have experience from the last 2 years in Victoria municipality as to what we lose in terms of safety and proactive support for our students without these individuals connected to our schools. Officers apply to be police liaison officers. If accepted for their term, they take specialized courses, which include working with youth through a trauma-informed lens, understanding youth and social media trends, conflict resolution, and school-based violent threat risk assessment. It's important to note that we are mandated by the Ministry of Education to include police in all levels of violent threat risk assessment, and police liaison officers are the only police that receive this training. The specialized training means that when they respond to incidents involving youth in our schools, they are doing it with a lens and expertise not shared by other police. My belief is that more instead of less officers should have this specialized mental health training and context. When the Victoria Police stopped funding police liaison officers 2 years ago, I started receiving feedback from our 3 secondary schools in Victoria. They noted that officers that responded did so without the time, training, or context for these situations. Some presented as uncomfortable in our schools, and their interactions with the kids and the families could be inconsistent and unpredictable. Non-emergency support isn't timely, so interactions have become solely reactive instead of proactive. The police liaison program is focused on the concept of relationship building. Our vulnerable youth do not operate in a vacuum, and in schools we are often navigating issues that originate in the community, home, or online. Our police liaison officers check to see if the online rumors we heard about a student death are true or not. They help youth reduce conflict in the communities and link families to school supports. They text at-risk youth to check in on their safety. They've been searching tent cities for missing youth. They take the time to educate our teens about their legal rights and teach them personal protection and yoga. They plan professional development with us. We currently have a tri-district human trafficking workshop that we planned with our liaison officers and the Intercultural Association that's on hold right now due to COVID. Most of these interactions would not warrant a call to patrol, yet they're crucial for the safety and well-being of our staff and students. The current issues around the world that shine a light on privilege, race, and police brutality is crucial. It's overdue and will hopefully help define our era if we can maintain sensitive, courageous dialogue, question our assumptions, and respond in new ways to these challenges. We can do this by continuing our work with our community partners in creating wraparound interdisciplinary supports for our most vulnerable populations. Our liaison officers are an important part of this work. I continually witness them advocating for our most silenced and avoidant youth. They commit to the long-term work of building relationships and trust. In December 2018, the trustees on this school board deplored the disbandment of our Victoria Police Liaison officers and publicly urged the police board to reinstate the positions. Please continue to support this partnership so we can help our most vulnerable youth and continue to provide safe environments for everyone in our schools. Thank you.
Jennifer, that was exactly 5 minutes. Very
You know
impressive.
what? I'm a bit of a rule follower, just so you know.
Well, clearly, thank you very much for speaking so articulately. We appreciate you being here tonight. Next, I'll welcome Mia Golden, who's also going to provide us a community presentation of 5 minutes. And Mia is from the Mobile Youth Services team, or MIST. Thank you so much for being here, Mia.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I will try my best to keep with the rules. That's a tall order, Jennifer. Thank you. I wrote some notes down just so that I could keep my thoughts straight, because I've had a few 12-hour shifts over the past few days. It's been quite busy. So yes, so my name is Mia Golden, and I am a member of the MIST team. MIST is comprised of 2 counselors and 1 police officer. And I've been in this position since 2014. Our mandate is to support youth and their families who may be at risk of recruitment or grooming for exploitation, gang involvement, or sex trafficking. I've been a child and youth and family counselor for over 20 years. My career has included working with young people involved in the justice system, a parenting assessment program for MCFD involved parents and their under 5 aged children, youth services, stopping the violence program, as well as fathers who use violence within their intimate partners. So I've had the gamut in terms of experience with vulnerable youth and families. MIST works with the most vulnerable youth in the CRD. Youth, as a result of their stage of development, are inherently vulnerable. However, in the past 5 years, I've seen a significant increase in risk. Young people have cell phones with them at all times. Social media is the perfect portal for predators to access our youth. I know very few 12-year-olds who have not been solicited for nudes, either by random strangers or their own peers. Sexualization at a very young age is now completely normalized. We cannot keep up with the need for support. I understand that the future of school liaison officers is being debated this evening, and I cannot express enough how concerning it is that such a motion is being considered without sufficient research. I've been working in and with the schools to support our young people for many years. I've worked in partnership with school liaison teams across the CRD. I'm a counselor and I'm a mental health worker. And so I feel that I'm in a unique position to be able to express my experience. Despite all that, despite my experience, I find that not enough people have been seeking out some of those of us who work within the field, our feedback. And I find this concerning. Since Victoria Police had to move their liaison officers back to patrol, our MIST team has been overwhelmed with calls to support the schools. When I say we can't keep up with the demand, there is no exaggeration there. A big part of my concern is that decisions are made without having the understanding of what goes into a police file from start to finish, how vital relationship building with a police officer is to a child who may be experiencing trauma in their home, within their community activities, or when they are approached by predators. And to be clear, they are being approached. Your children, your grandchildren, your nieces and nephews, they are all being approached online. I can't stress that enough. When a child experiences sexual abuse or a youth is sexually assaulted, the thought of disclosing to a police officer they have never met only compounds their trauma. We need the infrastructure in place that is trauma informed. Taking away a safety net is the opposite of trauma informed. Recently, the Black Lives Matter movement, there is increased talk of defunding the police. Well, I can say that as a Black person myself, as a person in the mental health field, and as a person within a team that has the benefit of policing attached to it. All I can say is people are responding without knowledge. We are all familiar with the saying, we don't know what we don't know. Well, I can assure you, anyone considering defunding or eliminating the school liaison team clearly don't know. I encourage you to come and spend a few days with us, ask us some questions, ask more, and see what we are doing. And you'll see that keeping up with the demand is overwhelming. We are currently drowning in missing youth who are overdosing, youth who are agreeing to do unspeakable sexual acts in exchange for some money or drugs, or sometimes just a sandwich. Youth who are being forced to run drugs because they now owe thousands of dollars after being robbed. And then there are those kids who are falling through the cracks, who are fascinated with weaponry and like to ask anyone with a gun about it. School liaison officers are in the school, building rapport, hearing the stories, responding to the disclosures, and recognizing when a child may be at risk to others and to themselves. There is a push to defund police and have other practitioners take over. Well, I can tell you from firsthand experience, the work with Miss Team does not and could not happen if we didn't have a police partner. Since the school liaison team was removed from Victoria, we are floundering. Children are falling through the cracks, and it will only increase. As predators' skill set increase, the need for prevention work is needed even more than ever. These children who have been without a school liaison officer have missed out on a prevention measure. As a parent, all I can say is I am happy my youngest just graduated, because if the last few years are any indication of what is to come, I hope you are ready for gut-wrenching heartache. And to be clear, we have many future casualties that are completely preventable solely by having a school liaison officer to bond with.
Thank you so much, Mia, for joining us tonight and sharing your perspective. I know I speak on behalf of the board when I say we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next, we move on to the chair's report, which is me and my opportunity to acknowledge Indigenous Peoples Day. So the Board of Education really wants to take the time tonight to recognize National Indigenous Peoples Day. Was yesterday, June 21st. And so this is a day for all Canadians to recognize and celebrate the heritage, diverse cultures, and outstanding contributions of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. In consultation with Indigenous organizations and communities, the Government of Canada chose June 21st, which is the summer solstice, for National Indigenous Peoples Day, the longest day of the year. For generations, many Indigenous peoples and communities have celebrated their cultures and heritage on or near this day due to the significance of the summer solstice being that longest day of the year. Our board is committed to reconciliation and our collective responsibility that we have in public education to be responsive to the TRC calls to action. We also believe that reconciliation is a process of healing relationships that requires public truth sharing, joint leadership, trust building, and the inclusion of perspectives and understanding from Indigenous elders and traditional knowledge keepers. We are grateful for the beautiful community that we live in and the relationships that we have with the Songhees and Esquimalt nations, and honor the Natsamat, where this means unity and working together as one. And it is work that we are all committed to. And we are going to continue that work. And today I just want to celebrate National Indigenous Peoples Day and raise my hands in gratitude. Haitchka. Thank you. Next is my chair's year-end report, which you can find on page 22 of the packet. I just highlighted a few of the things that I have been up to in connection with Indigenous Peoples Day. I did want to point out that I've been taking the fundamentals of OCAP training, which has been a real wonderful learning experience to sort of deepen my knowledge of colonization and the responsibilities that we have as researchers and knowledge keepers and folks that take on data for communities. I also wanted to just briefly highlight all of the efforts that's been going on with the ministry and the BCSTA and all of the knowledge sharing as we navigate COVID. It's been quite the year. And then, of course, wow, big hats off to all of our staff. You know, it's been a tremendous effort at all levels of the school district. And I know too, for families have had to take on responsibilities in this that were unexpected. And so hats off to everybody. We made it to the end of the year. And we did so well with integrity and grace. And so I'm very glad to have the opportunity to say that here we are in June. And as we look forward to September, I think we're all in far better stead, because who could have predicted this particular spring? Now, before we move any further on the agenda, and I apologize, getting all the little pieces together here is always challenging. I do want to share the email for folks who might be watching on YouTube, who might want to write in case we haven't figured out the pattern here. The email is boardmeeting0622@sd61.bc.ca. And so if you send in any questions, we can answer them if we're able to at the question period here on the agenda. So again, it's boardmeeting0622@sd61.bc.ca. The last item is certainly last but not least on my report is our 2020-2025 strategic plan. Now, this has been, the core work of the board over the last year. And of course, it was interrupted. And so we're glad to be getting back on track to be bringing this to the public. I want to thank Superintendent Green, who did such a tremendous job in making sure that we consulted in a good way with all of our partners, and that the plan that has been brought before you reflects that input. Because while this is the board strategic plan, it guides the work of the entire learning community. So a lot of work went into that. And so I also want to thank all of our partners for coming to the table and sharing their perspective so that we could create a plan that works for everybody. Wow, that's a lot of me talking. Anyways, we do have a recommended motion, and I want to open the floor to, before we start moving motions, to our partners and anybody who wants to share a perspective on this before the board begins the debate. Would anybody like to? It always feels anticlimactic. So much work goes into this, and then once we get here, I mean, that's how it should be if you've done a good job. Okay, so I'm not seeing any hands go up, which I'm going to take as a sign of approval, and I'll move to our trustees. And I've got Trustee McNally, Trustee Duncan, Trustee Whitaker. I meant no hands from our partners. I see all of our trustees. Don't worry. And Trustee Rob Painter. So let's start with Trustee Diane McNally.
Thanks so much, Chair. So what I see here are the overarching goals. It's not, the sub goals, the strategies, the fleshing out of this plan. So I'd like to make a motion to postpone this strategic plan vote to a definite time, to postpone to the September board meeting. And I'd like to provide a rationale for that, Chair. Go. I've attended
several. Seconder? Do you have a second?
Nicole.
Trustee Duncan?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
I've attended several planning and working meetings. I was unable to attend the last one a few weeks ago. The overarching goals do look good, but it's the operationalization of these goals through staff-generated operational plans that contain the details, and those plans are out of trustees' hands. I voted in favor during the last strategic plan process when we had a different superintendent in a leadership position. I voted in favor of supporting inclusion as a big picture item during the last strategic plan formation. And to my surprise and shock, and the shock of many dismayed parents whom we saw at board meetings, I found I had voted to close district programs. It was an operational decision and out of trustees' hands. So there's much more detail to this plan, and stakeholders and partner groups should have the time to read those details to see what the board is supporting in more depth than what we see in these general statements, which are lovely, but we need more depth. As well, I'm nearly done. As well, there is one more strategic plan meeting scheduled next Monday. I can't vote in favor of a plan that is still under discussion and that is not being completely shared with stakeholders and partners. Once the June 29th meeting is over, the complete plan can be referenced prominently on the district website in line with our transparency value. Students, parents, all staff, and the general public in School District 61 will be able to see in greater detail over the summer and early September what it is we're actually voting on. So for these reasons, I move postponement of the vote to the September board meeting.
Thank you, Trustee McNally. Just to clarify, our meeting next week is a year-end. It's board planning. It's not strategic planning.
It was described to me as a strategic plan, but never mind, leave that part out.
Yeah.
And that was just one sentence out of my.
It absolutely was, but I just wanted
Thanks so
to
much.
clarify. Any speakers to the motion? Trustee Duncan, Trustee Ferris?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think there was some confusion. I believe the invite for next week says strategic planning. So I think there was, certainly from my perspective, I assumed we were still working on the document. So that's unfortunate that there was some confusion around what the planning forward. But I certainly don't see any reason why we can't continue to have those conversations to tease out the operational plans, the reporting and so on, and then come back with a fully formed strategic endeavor to our next board meeting in September. So I certainly understand where Trustee McNally is coming from.
Trustee Ferris? Oh, you're muted, Tom.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
I'm sympathetic to Trustee McNally's concerns. However, I'd just like to point out that we've had an exceptional degree of consultation throughout the district on this strategic plan. In fact, I can't imagine that there's any group of people related to our district who have not had an opportunity to contribute and think about our strategic plan. So I'm perfectly happy to go forward with it. It is a living document and people can always speak to it at any time. Thank you.
Any other speakers to the motion? Trustee Rob Painter?
I'll try to keep it brief and on point. I appreciate that there's been a ton of work on this. However, one of the big challenges I have is that when we embarked on this process, I can't even remember how long ago it was, the point was made that this was just going to be a tune-up, a refresh. And I actually see this as being a significantly different document, different goals, different commitments. And while it's possible to tease out similar themes and thoughts, that makes sense. We're still talking about a school district after all. I think that there's a considerable change here, and it's going to come out to people as something completely new. With that in mind, I am concerned that we did decide to forego the public consultation aspect of actually taking this out and posting it for input from parents, from members of the public, and from students, actually. Beyond that, I have concerns about, well, the same concerns that I expressed right from the very start of this process, the idea of having SMART goals that were measurable and time limited and achievable. And throughout all this, while there's some great elements in this document, I struggle to figure out how anything in here is measurable or achievable. I don't know how we'll know if we achieve any of these things. I also have some challenges with basic language all the way through, but I'm not here to nitpick about that kind of stuff. Yeah, I think it looks good, but there is still a considerable amount of work to be done here. Thank you.
Did anybody else want to speak to this? Shelley, did you want to talk about the process at all, or? I'm hearing a lot of different things here. I'm hearing we want to have we want our staff working to develop all of the operational plans over the summer so that we can debate those in September. I'm hearing that we want to do a new consultative process. So I'm hearing a lot of different things. So maybe it helps if we could just wrap back around to what we have done. And then I'll go to Trustee Painter and Trustee Leonard. Oh, Superintendent?
So for trustees, I certainly don't need to repeat the process that you've gone through to be able to create a strategic plan. A strategic plan is the 20,000-foot big picture, main goals that you as trustees are looking to move towards over a 5-year period. You cannot create operational plans if you don't have a framework of a strategic plan. And so once the framework is built on the main goals, you have received a great deal of feedback, and I would like to explicitly recognize the amount of feedback we've achieved this time from our local nations and affiliate groups through our Indigenous communities who have been very strong in their views and ideas about areas. But ultimately our main focus as from the start was to look at our school district on areas that we might not be achieving as well as we would like to. And you did a lot of work around some of the numbers that we're looking at in those areas, and ultimately then taking a draft of some of the key things that you heard and looked at out to community, and got extensive response to be able to move into these 3 main high-level focus areas. And over the next 5 years, we would be looking at creating operational plans on a regular rotational basis, looking at what we put in place. That's not only about the goal around students and student learning and achievement and success, but also around how we measure each of those pieces from year to year, and through Kim's incredible work on how we budget that. And so we want to be looking at moving forward and increase success for our students in these key areas that you came to, and we certainly got extensive feedback agreeing with those areas of focus. So you've been out to the community. This is what we heard, and this is what we brought back as a framework for you as trustees to then give the support around, so that we can create operational plans and work through the working plan that would be a yearly document, the operational plans that could work with all your teams, schools, school staff, the measurable outcomes that come out of those and that come back as that yearly review for schools. And that would be the fluidity of what you learned through Julie around what a strategic plan is. But those cannot be created if you don't have an initial framework to move that through.
Trustee Ryan Painter, and then Trustee Leonard, and then we'll vote on the motion.
Thank you, Chair. I actually just wanted to reiterate what Superintendent Green has said and echo Trustee Ferris. We've done a lot of consultation on this, and I've been really happy to be involved in the development of this as we've gone forward. And I want to see us move to the next step in where we now put our seal of approval on this and allow it to move forward into the next phase where we start operationalizing it. I think now is the time to start moving. And I just think to me, it feels like a disservice to the work that we've done up until this point to then push it forward even more, to say that we need to consult even more, develop a whole new consultative process. I just don't feel like that's needed. I feel like we've done a full, robust consultation. And hats off to all the amazing work that's been done with talking tables and our communication staff and everything else that's been done to get us to this point. And I think we're well placed to move to the next phase. So I'm definitely going to support moving this forward.
Trustee Leonard, and then Trustee McNally, I know you want to close.
I won't add anything more. I just concur with Trustee Painter and the superintendent. We have done a lot of consultation. I think this is ready to move forward, and I think Trustee McNally will have her backup information after this goes forward in the fall. I'm sure the superintendent and staff will start providing regular updates as to formalizing the plan about how they're going to move forward, but they can't do that until we approve this. Thank you.
Is there anybody else who wanted to speak that has yet to have the opportunity? Diane, did you want to close?
Yes, please. Because we have not provided the public with the entirety of the strategic plan that we have seen with the sub goals and the strategies, I feel like we're cheating the public in terms of not allowing stakeholders to see any detail, any level of detail on what we're approving tonight. We've all had the experience of being consulted, and that's one thing. And the consultation process here, I'm sure, has been really honorable. But I've had the experience of being consulted, and then a final product is quite another thing. So I really believe that we should allow the public and our stakeholders to see the entirety of the plan over the summer and take this vote forward in September. For myself, I wasn't suggesting that staff create all the operational plans over the summer. I do understand that, I understand how that works. I just want the public to be able to see the full plan and realize what we're voting on. Thank you.
Okay, I will call the question, and the motion, as I understand it, Trustee McNally, is to refer this to September ops. No, sorry.
It's to place it on the September board agenda.
The September board agenda. Okay. September board. All those in favor? All those opposed? Any abstentions? Trustee Duncan, I don't know if you froze, but I did not.
I'm opposed.
You're opposed. So we've got 3 opposed: Diane, Trustee Rob Painter, Trustee McNally, and Trustee Duncan, and the balance in favor. And so the motion, oh, sorry, the opposite. You're opposed.
Yeah.
Sorry. Let me try that again. There were 2 in favor, which is Trustee McNally and Trustee Rob Painter, and the balance were opposed. Therefore, the motion fails. And so we still have the strategic plan in front of us today for our consideration. And I do just want to add that as the operational plans are developed, those will come to the board and be on public agendas for discussion at that time. Would anybody like to move approval of the, yeah, that's Trustee Whitaker and Trustee Ryan Painter. Would anybody like to speak to the motion to approve or accept the 2020-2025 strategic plan as presented? Trustee Whitaker, did you want to open? And then I've got Trustee Rob Painter.
Perfect, perfect. Yeah, you know, a strategic plan is a living document. It's not finished, it's not completed. It is, as I think Superintendent Green did mention, that it is an overarching high-level document. There's been a lot of work that goes into this. And what I do know, if we don't pass this and get something on the table to work from, that I find it unbelievable that we will achieve things next year if we don't have the opportunity to start looking at that plan and getting serious and getting those operational plans in. So I am in support of this.
Trustee Rob Painter.
Yeah, I've got a number of questions of clarification, which may lead to motions to amend language, but I'll start with the questions of clarification and see where they go. The first one, Goal 1, Strategy 3. It speaks specifically to engagement and completion rates. Now, when I read completion rates and then I see elsewhere graduation rates, that signals to me that we're talking evergreen certificates as opposed to dogwoods. And it strikes me that we have diverse learners in our district who are entirely capable of graduating with a dogwood. And so what that made me wonder is the intention of Goal 1 to focus, or of Strategy 3, Goal 1, to focus strictly on that special subset of diverse learners who are only able to come away with an evergreen certificate, or am I reading this too precisely?
The word of diverse learners is referencing all our learners who learn in unique or diverse ways. So it's not one subset, it's the wide swath all across our district. And the concept of completion rates includes dogwoods, it includes every aspect of completing and the length of time. So some of our students who may require a little bit longer to achieve their dogwood, or looking at dual dogwoods, it encompasses all the diversity of learning and success. Certainly a big part of our conversation was with our nations and looking at success and being able to offer opportunities on what they looked like success would be. So this wanted to encompass all the pieces, but it is not that as narrow as your thinking is.
Okay, thank you for that. One strategy that I was really, I was surprised to see that it was absent here, is increased student engagement. Now, a strategy like that, I think, is really clear, understandable, and easy to know whether or not we've achieved it. I see things about collaboration with, but it's to provide an inclusive learning environment, which I have to admit, I don't really know how to define. I don't know if we're there right now. I don't know if I'll know when we're there in the future. This one is specific to student engagement, and a lot of the things that we've talked about in the past, things like having our student reps meeting with the superintendent, things like the superintendent going out and meeting with students at the high schools and possibly middle schools, and actually having a dialogue with them and answering their questions. I saw some great examples with the budget process, with the Secretary Treasurer bringing students in. These are really important things, and I think that's one of those critical elements that we need to acknowledge and have as part of our strategic plan, because we're trying to build good citizens, people who are capable of engaging, understanding, and having an opinion and making that opinion clear. So that's something that, when I'm done, I'll move to actually introduce as a strategy. One question I had about Goal 2, I noticed both Goal 1 and Goal 3 are refer to creating an inclusive and culturally responsive learning environment. Goal 2 is only a culturally responsive learning environment. Now, I have to admit that for me, inclusive is definitely going the way of plethora and fulsome and other buzzwords that are really kind of getting to the point of meaning a whole lot of whatever you feel like meaning at the time. And it's not to be derisive, I simply don't necessarily know what it means. but I think about the potential for diverse learners amongst our Indigenous students. And I think that that's something that we probably want to consider, and we probably want to ensure that when we're thinking about talking about Indigenous worldviews, histories, and perspectives, that we are incorporating the inclusive aspect to that. So that's something that I felt was a bit of a challenge. Elsewhere, just really some questions about some of the language choices. Noticed a bit of a typo, strategy 3 of goal 3. I think it should be engage and collaborate as opposed to engagement, but I think that's just your standard typo. One bit of wording that I was kind of surprised with, and I have to admit, made me quite uncomfortable, was under the core value of transparency. We are accountable for the decisions we make and how we make them. Seems reasonable. The old language in the last strategic plan was, we are open about the decisions we make and how we make them. And to me, that's a very different message. Being open about the decision-making process is about letting people in, sharing the information that we have, what are our priorities, what are our issues and concerns, and then when we make a decision, people understand what it's about. Being accountable, on the other hand, is more about, yeah, we'll take the hit if someone doesn't like the plan or someone doesn't like the outcome. It's a very different thing that goes beyond just simple nuance. And so it's another one that I'm going to recommend that we change. All in all, as I said before, right from the get-go, I said that my only real challenge with the first strategic plan was that we didn't have solid indicators, that even the ones that were in some ways measurable, they had no outcomes that we were expecting. And that is what I've said from the outset that I really wanted to see in this document. The strategic plan, in my mind, is the commitment that we as a board make to our community. We are going to deliver this over the next 4 or 5 years. And unfortunately, I'm not seeing anything that really holds us to account. And I wish it would. So I'll make 2 motions then. One is to increase as strategy, or to add as strategy for goal 1, to increase student engagement. And 2.
Can you do it one at a time, please?
Okay, I'll do it one at a time. So I'll start with that one.
Can you repeat it, please, for the record?
Increase student engagement.
Sorry,
Where specifically?
which goal?
Strategy 4.
Strategy 4, thank you.
Okay, do you have a seconder? Trustee McNally? Okay, any speakers to the motion? Trustee Whitaker?
So, well, I hear Trustee Painter, and that, you have continually said that you want the measurable goals so that you can see how the budget and the strategic plan and the outcomes measure up. And I get that. And I do believe that through creating the operational plans afterwards, that is where we can insert the SMART goals. And that's how we will create those measures, will be in that plan. I'm concerned with creating at the last minute new strategies and adding them to this plan, because my question has to be to Trustee Painter, where did that come from? Where's the data? Where's the community input from all of the input that we received and that we've collated and we've gone through? I would need you to draw the line from your motion to those pieces that we have received in consultation. Otherwise, it appears that the board is ignoring that consultation, because that consultation didn't actually, that we received, didn't say what we wanted. What we really wanted was the new goal that you're saying right now, Trustee Painter. I'm not saying it's a good or it's a bad, but my concern is that it goes away from consultation. So I'm looking for the evidence that it's what the community had actually asked for.
Thank you, Trustee Whitaker. Are there any other speakers to the motion? Trustee Leonard?
Just to say that we've been at this a year now, and if anybody had wanted to add a goal or felt that something was that important, I think our last meeting before this was finalized was only 10 days ago or so. So there was ample opportunity for people to either add it as something to go out to the community about, or talk about it at the last meeting with our facilitator that we actually finalized the document in front of us. So I'm not in support of changing anything at the last minute. If we want to put something in under the administrative notes, that we can maybe foresee adding that in someplace in the administrative notes later on, but I don't see changing any of the 3 goals in front of us at this time.
Thank you, Trustee Leonard. Okay, all those in favor?
Sorry, Chair.
Okay, and I see Trustee Duncan raised her hand too. Maybe you're on a delay.
I think my intention is.
I apologize. So please go ahead, and then we'll go to Trustee Rob Painter to close.
No, not at all. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just wanted to say that 2 things. One, I know when we read the student feedback from some of the student forums that were undertaken, certainly engaging our students and increasing their engagement, not just in the learning environment, but in what we do at a district level as governors came across to me, certainly. When I look at the goals and see that there's an opportunity to read some of those strategies more broadly. And certainly strategy 2 under goal 1 around engagement and collaborating with students, families, and staff. To me, I think that engaging our students has got to be a priority. I think for me, there's not a lot of debating that. I think it's about how we envision delivering on that engagement, how we see ourselves as students levels, and that it's missing. I think that when we have an opportunity to see those operational plans come up through the standing committees and come to the board, we'll be getting into a lot of these details about how we foresee this vision coming to life. And so while I appreciate Trustee Painter's amendment, I think we can actually amendment this time.
Thank you so much. Rob, would you like to close?
Yeah, just in general terms, I realize it's been a long process, but my recollection is that it's been a long process punctuated by long periods of not much. We made attempts to meet, and they were canceled for a lot of various reasons. This thing went on behind the scenes. I honestly, I have no questions that a great deal of consultation went on. I don't really know anything about it. I don't recall seeing consultation reports. I don't remember seeing a whole lot of stuff. I remember getting sort of, oh, well, here's what it is today. And then we would discuss it for a little bit and off we'd go. And then it would come back and it would be something different. No, so I don't feel that we've really done the consultation. One of the biggest things is I don't feel that we've given the opportunity to our parents and our students to actually be engaged in this. And that's the biggest concern.
Okay, we're a little off topic to the
Yeah,
specific amendment.
I've got nothing else. Yep.
That said, the periods of nothing was when our staff were working very hard to have those difficult conversations and to create the plan that we see before us that has the assent of all of our partners. All of those in favor of the amendment to the strategic plan, which is adding a strategy 4. All of those opposed? And abstentions? Rob, I didn't see you indicate. I assume
I'm
you
sorry,
voted
I was in favor. I was in favor.
So trustee Rob Painter and Diane McNally in favor and the balance opposed, so the motion fails. Would you like to move your second proposed amendment?
Yes, it's to add inclusive and in goal 2 in the same manner that it is in goal 1 and goal 3.
Do you have a seconder?
We'll see.
Trustee Duncan. Any speakers on the motion? Any of our partners want to jump in? You're welcome to. Crystal?
Hi, thank you for the opportunity just to make, I just wanted to clarify your comment about your partners assenting to it. I think I didn't realize that's what we were being asked to assent to it. I know that BCPAC provided feedback and we really haven't had a chance to review what parts of our feedback made it into this draft, but I would not like it on the record that BCPAC is assenting to the strategic plan. So I just want to clarify that.
Do we have any speakers to the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Oh, Winona, do you want to speak to the motion?
I think you were muted. I didn't hear what you said about Crystal's point.
If I misspoke, then I apologize. The goal of the consultations is to make sure that we're delivering a strategic plan that reflects the feedback from all of our partner groups. And I think what my concern is that if we change it without going back and doing that consultation process, then we're breaking that essentially. Because I assume that all of our partners have had a chance to review it as it is in the agenda. And you haven't seen it in the agenda, in the packet?
Well, this isn't on the motion. So Chair, if I could just reserve the right to speak once you deal with this motion.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Could I speak on the motion? Sorry, I took my time and I spoke about something else and I'm sorry about that. But I read goal 1 and goal 2 and goal 3, and I don't understand why the word inclusive isn't in goal 2. And I think it should be there. And I would support Trustee Painter's amendment.
Superintendent Green?
So the reason it's not there is that this went back and forth to our nation several times, as I mentioned in the presentation, that they were very focused on exactly what wording they felt comfortable with. And this is our 2 Songhees and Esquimalt nations, our urban nation and our Métis. And so they themselves were incredibly focused on what wording that they wanted. And as I mentioned again in the presentation, they built this structure that we followed for the other two, because they truly saw that goal and the structure being reflective of the consultation that they had gone through. And some of the wording became incredibly critical to them. So if that wording was to change, we would have to go back and provide consultation all over again to get agreement from those 4 partner groups. As for the agreement of all our partners, as you're aware with strategic plan, the goal was to create your initial framework, to go out for consultation with all of the groups, to put together what each of those groups said in their consultation and some focus. And that comes back to you as trustees. This is your strategic plan. You are enfolding all of what you've heard to create a document that is at the 20,000 foot level. As we bring that down into operational plans, that includes in schools and with our partner groups on operationalizing them and having that conversation and building those. But this one is the feedback providing. It does not go back again to get wordsmith with each of the groups. Ultimately, this is your role to create, as Julie has said to you, the infusion of what you heard into this high-flying, big picture document where people can see themselves in there, but you would never get every one of our groups ascending to every single word. This is our role to be able to put as much of that together as possible.
Any other speakers to the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? So that's Trustee McNally, Rob Painter, and Trustee Duncan. All those opposed? And any abstentions? Nope, that's the balance. Okay, so we don't have a motion on the floor at this time. Trustee Rob Painter?
Did Winona wanted to speak, didn't she?
Yeah, I'll defer.
Winona?
I'm not Chair, is the motion to approve the strategic plan on the floor? I thought you were making amendments to that.
They were making amendments to we have not moved to accept it as presented. And so I'm taking the suggestions as edits so that when we approve it as presented.
Then I think I just wanted to echo the sentiments of VCPAC. We were consulted early on in the process and gave some feedback. I'm not clear how that's reflected in this document, but so I just want to be cautious of how it's characterized. This is certainly the board's document and not a document that I want to say is the GVTA's document in any manner. And I think we'll be able to work with the board once they pass a strategic plan and actualize it, but I just wanted to be clear on that piece.
I apologize. I obviously used the wrong words. What I was meaning is that we've gone through a consultation process, and what my feeling is if we make substantive changes to the plan, then we owe it to go back and do that. That's what I meant, because we've already gone through that process. And so I understand that I misspoke, and so I take that back off of the record. It is the board's plan, as I said. It impacts the entire district, but no, it's not VCPAC's strategic plan. It's not the GVTA strategic plan. It's the board's strategic plan, and so we own it, obviously. And we own the year-long process that we've gone through in terms of doing that. The consultations. So I'm reminded that we do have the motion on the floor. Anne and Ryan moved it. So if anybody else would like to speak to it, they are welcome to, and then I will call the question. Okay, Trustee Painter, this is your last kick at the can.
All right. Well, then double barrel one. I have one last wordsmithing thing, and it's pretty simple. But a point of clarification I would ask then, the operational plans that come to either our standing committees or the board, are they open for discussion and amendment, or are they simply for information? I think that's an important distinction that we need to make.
Superintendent?
So as you decide on your strategic plan, the different teams will get together and look at each of those goals, where we are currently at with data on where we sit underneath those goals and strategies. That comes to the board in a conversation about where we're currently sitting. The board will have the in-depth conversation about your thoughts, your ideas, your questions under each of those pieces on where we currently are at, where you would like to go, looking at the big picture. And through that conversation and consultation, we take those away and we begin this start one of a strategy plan. Remember, this is going to go over 5 years. So we have to look at where we're starting from and where we want to go to. And then staff takes that away, creates the operationalizing of that, and balance that out over a school year on what we want to be doing with those pieces. Those are fluid operational plans. You get a chance to have a look at them on what you said in our initial conversation on planning. That would start normally at the end of a school year and the beginning of another one. And then the operationalizing them are created. Those come into committee meetings on a regular basis. So we would set in the working plan that I keep telling you about, where the operational plans would visit back, and those are fluid, ever-changing documents. As we move forward, the initiatives we're putting in place, the data that we're looking at on measuring our pieces, and as Kim does her budgeting component, they will come up again. So every time we bring those pieces back, there's more conversation and consultation about where we're going and then how to advance them and shift them forward.
Thank you, that's very helpful. So my last bit of wordsmithing has to do with core value transparency. Currently, we are accountable for the decisions we make. I believe that the previous language, we are open about the decisions we make and how we make them, is a more powerful and appropriate way for a public body to function. So I think openness goes beyond accountability, and that's my rationale.
So can I clarify, you just want to change transparent to open?
No,
He wants
transparency
to change
stains.
accountable to open, because he thinks that open is stronger than accountable.
Okay.
Do you have a seconder?
Trustee McNally.
Okay. Any speakers to the motion? Secretary Treasurer Morris.
Sorry, can I just get what the actual wording of the core value will be or proposed to be?
We are, sorry, go ahead, Rob.
My apologies, sir. Strike up accountable for and insert open about.
Okay, thank you.
I'll speak to it if nobody else will. For me, accountable is a lot stronger than open. Open is allowing people to see your decisions, whereas accountable means you let them see it and you take responsibility for them. So that's where I sit on this, although I feel like we're off into wordsmithing. Trustee Leonard?
I agree that accountable, I think, is a stronger word. The buck stops with us. as is always the phrase. So that means we are accountable for whatever is in this document. And just the fact that we're open means we put it on the web, we publish it, whatever, but that doesn't mean that we are accountable for it, which I think is stronger. So I'm looking at staying with the language we have in front of us.
Any other speakers? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Trustee Painter.
Just to close, thank you very much for indulging me. I would say that in my mind, the distinction between accountable, which is something that we are regardless of whether anything's put on paper or not, and open, which in my mind has an element of proactivity, of inviting people in and understanding how the process is, or how the decisions are made, inviting their input, and then explaining clearly how it was that we came to the decisions that we are, I think is far more significant than accountability alone, which is something that we get to wear regardless of whether it's in the strategic plan or not.
Okay, all those in favor? And that's Trustee McNally, Trustee Painter, and Trustee Duncan. All those opposed? And that's the balance. So the motion fails. So we're back to the main motion. Any further speakers? Seeing none, I'd just like to thank everybody for their hard work on this. All the meetings that trustees went to, Julie McRae, who facilitated this process, and Shelley for leading the engagement, and Lisa McPhail for getting the thought exchange and all of those pieces together. So I'll call the question on the main motion, which is to accept the 2020-2025 strategic plan as presented. All those in favor? All those opposed? Any abstentions? So I've got Trustee Rob Painter opposed and Trustee Diane McNally abstained. And the motion carries. Woo, we're finally done the chair's report. On to trustee reports. I've got Trustee Ferris with two reports, page 25 of the packet.
Thank you very much. The French Immersion report is on page 25. I just want to point out that we've had some very good numbers in middle school French programs at the grade 6 entry level. And so I urge people to read that report. I also have a report from the Ad Hoc Aboriginal Committee, and it will be posted on the website, but hasn't been yet. I wanted, first of all, to say that Sherry Niemi very successfully outlined the work of the committee as it was focused on the strategic plan. And I think that was a very commendable amount of work that was done by the committee. And on behalf of the district, I'd like to thank the Esquimalt Nation, Songhees Nation, and Métis Nation for providing representatives to work in the committee, and along with representation from the parent community, student body, and the Greater Victoria Teachers Association. I thought it was a very successful year. And lastly, I would like to thank the Songhees Nation for hosting the recent meetings, and Patrick Harriott of the Métis Nation for being chair of those meetings. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Tom, and thank you for sitting on those committees on our behalf. I'll move to Trustee Hensa.
Thanks. I don't really have anything to add other than what's in my written report.
Thank you. Trustee Duncan.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just apologies to my colleagues and those around the table. The hard copy of the report from the Advocacy Committee on behalf of Trustee Whitaker and I be available online, hopefully tomorrow. But I just want to highlight a couple of things from that report, and that being that the committee met 4 times during the school year. We identified 4 areas of priority, being children in care, childcare and early learning, mental health literacy, and mental wellness. And we also considered one motion that was referred to us by the board that has led to a letter of advocacy being sent on behalf of the Board of Education to the Minister of Education. Away on the second motion that was referred by the board, and there will be a memo presented later tonight in relation to our progress regarding that particular motion. So please do take the time to read the details once it's posted online. And thank you to everybody on the committee for their hard work, and to Mr. Roberts for agreeing to be our very able chair.
Thank you so much. Next, I'll turn to Trustee Rob Painter.
Oh, thanks very much. Well, the report is there for everyone to read. The one thing I would bring your attention to is that we do have some tentative meeting dates scheduled for next year. So if you are interested in attending, this is primarily trustees, then those are the dates, and you can contact me for more information as we go forward. As far as the most recent meeting summary, really we'll be covering that later on in the meeting, so I'll just skip that for now. Thank you.
Trustee McNally.
Thanks so much, Chair. My report too, I hope will be available online tomorrow. The Indigenous Nations Education Council has broad representation from the community and is chaired by Janice Simcoe from Camosun College, Indigenous programs there. And on occasion, our Associate Superintendent Greg Kitchen has attended, Shelley Numi has attended, our superintendent has attended on occasion. So I've been pleased to be an accepted participant, well, not so much a participant, just an accepted, more or less learner there, and a representative of the board in any way that can be helpful. So look for the report tomorrow. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Trustee McNally. Next, I'll turn it over for our last report, Trustee Ryan Painter.
Thank you, Chair. I've been really privileged to sit with the District Gender and Sexuality Alliance, and I've provided my report, but I really just wanted to highlight my appreciation for Harold Caldwell for his consistent and dedicated role in spearheading and directing this organization, although I'm sure he would say that the students direct it. His passion is really evident in every meeting, and his kindness and warmth, it just is continuously inspiring to me. Harold continues to share resources from SOGI to support our LGBTQ+ youth, especially during the COVID response. Rainbow Week was observed from May 19th to May 22nd. We purchased rainbow flags for schools to raise during Rainbow Week and Pride Week. We're flying the flag as well. And you've also probably received the email about the t-shirts that were provided by the district. So I can't say enough amazing things about Harold and the great work he's doing to support our students all over the district. So that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Next, we're moving to our board committee report. So education policy and direction is up first. I'll turn it over to Trustee Duncan.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. The draft minutes are there for information only, haven't been approved by the committee yet. And there was one recommended motion from the committee during our June 1st meeting. Chair, did you want me to read the motion and put it on the floor? Okay, so the recommended motion is that the Board of Education of School District Number 61, Greater Victoria, amend bylaw 91 standardized agenda setting, the taking of minutes at all ad hoc committee meetings, and regular reporting out to the Board of Education through the appropriate standing committee. The procedural requirements shall set out that the meeting materials such as agendas, minutes, and up-to-date terms of reference for all ad hoc committees will be posted to the district website.
Okay, I'll open to the floor. Speakers to the motion. Trustee Whitaker.
Thanks. So I appreciate this motion, but when I pulled up the bylaw, I started going, like, I think it's great that it's in the motion, but I'm looking for the actual edits. Because when I looked at the bylaw, what I sort of saw is everything that you're asking for there can be easily inserted. So I guess what I'm looking for is, can we send this to somebody to write the amendments and send me a policy with those edits in there? Like, I have some that I think of, but I mean, I'm happy to approve the motion. But to me, that doesn't approve the bylaw. I'm looking for the wording in the bylaw to do the final approval. So I see that Trustee Duncan wants to speak to that.
Trustee Duncan.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, that was certainly the intention, was that this motion would, if supported by the board, would prompt the work to be undertaken to make those amendments. And then, you know, obviously there's a process for approving amendments to a bylaw. And so once the amendments were made, then the bylaw would need to be.
Trustee Whitaker.
So that being said, can we amend this bylaw to direct the superintendent to review and amend bylaw 9140 and bring back to the board, right? Like, I think being so prescriptive in here, like, I don't know how to do this, but I can't approve this because it doesn't have the amendments in a bylaw. So how do we approve the motion of amending this bylaw to bring back to the board is what I'm looking for.
The bylaw is on the list for the policy subcommittee already, just for the record.
So can we direct, or can we push this to that committee as written so that that can be considered? I have ideas how to insert it, but do you know what I mean? Like, and in all Trustee Duncan's fairness, I think it's all a really great idea. It's just, I can't approve it without it in this bylaw. So if we're good, then I would move that this get referred to that policy committee to make those amendments and bring back to the board in September. Can I make that amendment?
You can make that if you have a seconder, you can refer it. Trustee Ryan Painter seconds you. Any speakers to the motion to refer? Trustee Leonard, were you indicating?
I was just going to say that that's the normal procedure, is that if there's things that people want changed in a bylaw or whatever, we have been allowing it to be referred to the policy committee, and then they bring it back as soon as they can. And some things obviously are more time sensitive than others, so we are getting to them as fast as we can. But if this is something that people need done quickly, then we'd put it at the top of our list.
Trustee Duncan speaking to the motion to refer.
Yeah, that's right, Chair. Yeah. What I would suggest is, I don't have a problem with it going somewhere or being specific about where it goes to have the work undertaken. I suppose I would point out that we have recommendations from staff all the time around amendments to bylaws or involving our bylaws. I certainly envisioned that our staff would undertake these amendments and amend bylaw to vote on. That's certainly what I envisioned. What I'm concerned about is it going to the bottom of a pile of policy work, which I know is huge. And I think that these amendments are important and in my view overdue. And so I'm hesitant to support a referral that puts it to the bottom of the to-do list.
So
when
to
we can
clarify, I did say in September.
And we won't have any of these committees meeting until then, except for policy, apparently, which is a subcommittee anyways. Any other speakers to the motion to refer? Seeing none, I'll call the question to refer this motion to the policy subcommittee to provide a recommendation to the board at the September board meeting. Is that correct? Okay, all those in favor? All those opposed? Rob Painter and Diane McNally opposed. The balance were 4, so the motion carries. Okay, now we'll move to our ops meeting committee. I'll pass it over to Trustee Leonard.
Okay, we have 1, 2, 3 motions for the ops meeting because the first one has been deferred to September. So it was a busy time. Thank you to Trustee or Chair Jordan Waters for chairing the meeting via Zoom for me, because I'm not as adept at this as she is. So if there's no objections, we would move all motions at the same time unless somebody wants one pulled out.
Trustee Whitaker, what would you like pulled out? And then I've got Trustee Painter, Trustee McNally, and I've got Winona. So
I would like the last one. I don't see they're numbered, but the last one pulled out.
Okay, I've got that number as number 4.
Okay. I don't have any numbers.
I numbered them. Anybody else? Trustee McNally?
Yes, I'd like to sever number 2. I sure wish we could number these on the agenda sheet.
It's the second one. The second one about the federal and
second
provincial.
one, safety zone.
Okay, which means that we're doing them all individually anyhow. So let's just start with number 2, which is our new number 1, that the Board of Education directs staff to make application for federal or provincial grant funding to undertake Safety Design Council certification for a new replacement or retrofit capital project at no cost to the board, and further that staff secure letters of support from the Ministry of Education and Public Safety and Solicitor General to support relevant grant applications. I'll let the chair take over from there.
thank you, Trustee Leonard. Before we get further into this, do any of our partners want to comment on this motion? Seeing none. Trustees, Trustee McNally.
Thank you. So thinking about Safe Design, the Safe Design Council is a nonprofit organization responsible for overseeing, administering, and managing the safe design standards, which are the first international crime reduction through design certification program aimed at achieving various site and building securities through landscape architecture, and so on. Their focus is crime reduction through design as a central consideration when planning, designing, engineering, building sites, and related built environments. I'd like to hear a report from facilities about any actual crimes or safety issues on School District 61 property that have been due to not providing any of those provisions of safe design on School District 61 property before I can support this motion. I don't know if it's necessary or if it isn't. So at this point, I can't support it without a report from facilities.
Mr. Morris, did you have anything to add? You certainly don't have to, but just you are facility, so I'll give you the opportunity.
Just briefly, I can put a report together for you folks. There is crime that takes place on some of the properties, so if that's your wish.
Not necessarily, but thank you. Trustee Ryan Painter.
Thank you, Chair. I don't know if this allays Trustee McNally's concerns or not, but I brought this motion initially to ops as I had facilitated connections between members of the board of the Safe Design Council and district staff. And there had been conversations, especially with Secretary Treasurer Morris, around grant funding that could be made available through the civil forfeiture program, as well as through the Ministry of Education and Ministry of Solicitor General to provide up to $135,000 for pilot projects for potentially 3 sites in our district. And this would be done at no cost to the board, which is why the motion itself says a new replacement or retrofit capital project at no cost to the board. I do understand and appreciate that perhaps we don't have a report in front of us, but I think Chuck's words are well put. I think this is certainly, in terms of a preventative framework and a mitigation framework, is worthwhile. I'll note that BC Transit has taken this safe design standard on and will be implementing it within the next year. The City of Calgary has taken on the safe design standard as well, and currently the Safe Design Council is working with the Ministry of Health to look to bring them into the safe design standard as well. So it is something that is being adopted, and we have an opportunity to be a pilot project, a pilot program within this very unique, very interesting safety through architectural design program. So that's kind of why I brought it to us.
Thank you for that background. I appreciate it. Any other speakers? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion as read by Trustee Leonard. All those opposed? Abstentions? So Trustee McNally abstained and the rest were in favor, is that correct? Great, and the motion carries. So next we move on to Trustee Leonard, did you want to read it?
Sure.
Big long one.
It's a nice long one. Recommended motion that the Board of Education of SD 61, Greater Victoria, direct the Audit Committee to review the SJ Burnside Upgrade Project from the fiscal year 2018-19 and 2019-20 and provide the Board of Education report that identifies the following. Number 1, the budget allocated to the SJ Burnside Upgrade Project in all relevant fiscal years. Number 2, the expenses and the resulting surplus or deficit for each fiscal year. Number 3, the work that is outstanding to date. Number 4, the budget and cost management processes in place during the SJ Burnside Upgrade Project. Number 5, reporting and monitoring measures in place during the SJ Burnside Upgrade Project. Number 6, external reporting standards in place during the SJ Burnside Upgrade Project. Number 7, all steps taken to enforce financial controls and to mitigate financial risks to the school district during the SJ Burnside Upgrade Project. And finally, the Audit Committee's recommendations regarding possible areas of improvement to district risk assessment, risk management, and internal financial controls.
Thank you so much. Any of our partners want to speak to the motion? Seeing none, any trustees want to speak to it? Seeing none, I shall call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? I believe that was unanimous. No abstentions. That was unanimous. Okay, great.
The last,
now we're
last one.
Moving on to the last one.
That the Board of Education of SD 61 Greater Victoria direct the Equity Committee to undertake discussions with members of the school community including but not limited to racialized Indigenous and LGBTQ staff, parents, and students to number 1, determine what, if any, concerns there may be regarding the district school liaison officer program, and number 2, develop recommendations as required on what changes should be made to the program to improve its value to the school community.
Okay, thank you so much. I'll go to Winona.
Thank you, Chair.
And then Crystal.
Recent events have certainly shone a light on institutional racism, and I think particularly in policing, but I think we need to acknowledge that it's not just in policing. It's also, we've seen these recent pieces around healthcare, and certainly we've experienced it within our own structures in education. Last Wednesday, the GVTA passed a motion that the GVTA encouraged the district to review the role of school police liaison officers, and that as part of this review, they seek input from staff and students, particularly those who are Indigenous, Black, and people of color. I think tonight we've heard from two people that work closely with police liaisons. Both Jennifer and Mia spoke to how important those roles have been. This has been my own experience as a teacher within our school district as well, that it's been incredibly helpful to have somebody who understands and knows the school community. I think it's important that we look at these pieces, but I think we also want to be cautious that we're really acknowledging the role that they play and taking the voices of the various people that work with them. So listening to staff, to our Indigenous community members, to our Black members and our teachers of color and our families of color, and really focusing on what they're asking us to do. And my final piece on this is that I'm not sure that we should be referring this important work to the Equity Committee. I think this should be done by staff, and then the information, the research that comes out, go to something like the Equity Committee and have them be able to make recommendations around them if there's recommendations to make. But the Equity Committee is made up of people who already have full jobs, and I think this work needs the attention that some of the district staff could certainly put their full attention to. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Winona. Crystal.
I wanted to speak in support of the motion, especially the reaching out to various community members. I would also urge the board and the district to look at its own data as well as part of this collection piece. I don't know the extent to which you keep race-based data on police report, a police call outs to schools, but to see what information you have and to put that in a public and present that in a public forum as well as part of the discussion as well.
Whenever. Sorry, I'm muted. Do any of our other partners want to speak before we turn it over to trustees? I've got Trustee Whitaker and then Trustee Ryan Painter.
Am I to go? Okay, sorry, I wasn't sure where we were at there. I would like to propose an amendment to this. As we discussed at the ops meeting, when we did discuss this, that I did say that I would give some thought to it, because I too, like Winona, I don't believe that this should be the Equity Committee. So my amendment is that the Board of Education of School District number 61 direct the superintendent to establish an ad hoc committee to undertake blah, blah, blah.
Do you have a seconder?
I'm not sure.
Okay, Trustee Hetza. Okay, any speakers to the motion? So this is directing the superintendent to create an ad hoc. We're just shifting the wording at the very beginning, yeah?
Yeah, and as I said, and I think if I can speak to it, is I just believe that this work is really, really important, and it should be a task to one committee. And once they're done, they should end, and we should have a timeline. We can only do that within an ad hoc committee. So that's why I think we need to go that way and have a proper terms of reference.
Okay, Trustee Painter, Ryan.
Thank you, Chair. I agree 100% with Trustee Whitaker, and I really appreciate her moving this to an ad hoc committee where I think it's the right place to have this conversation and discussion. I would propose a further amendment to the motion because you only allowed 2 amendments deep. So, and I am aware of that. So my further amendment to this has actually been sent to trustees, and I'm not sure if we're able to pull it up on a screen. I do have it here in front of me, but
Would you mind, for simplicity's sake, if we did one amendment at a time? If it was an amendment to the amendment?
It was kind of, but I can see it not being. Maybe let's move this first, and then we can go back to it because I see it being both actually. So let's just deal with this first.
Okay, I'll come right back to you.
Sure.
I know this might be a bit of a journey, so I just want to stay right on top of it. Any speakers to shifting it from equity to a dedicated ad hoc? Trustee Duncan?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just want to say that I do support the approach that Trustee Whitaker is suggesting. I think it's a sensible way to organize this work to ensure that there's clear timelines and a clear direction.
I couldn't hear the last part. I don't know if others couldn't either. You cut out there.
Sorry, unfortunately, for some reason tonight, both my power and my Wi-Fi is acting up, so not ideal timing. I just said that I support the amendment.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no speakers, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the amendment? That looks unanimous. Okay, and we're back to the main motion. So I'll go to Ryan Painter and Tom. I see you, and Diane as well.
Thank you, Chair. So yeah, I really appreciate that we're taking this to an ad hoc committee. I have provided what I think is an amendment to the motion itself, which I believe deals not just with the school liaison officers, but other such initiatives that I think are important in terms of looking at anti-racism initiatives in our school district. So the motion would be read as follows. That the Board of School District 61 form an ad hoc committee to undertake discussions with members of the school community, including racialized, Indigenous, and LGBTQ staff, parents, and students to determine what concerns there may be regarding anti-racism initiatives in the school district, which would include reviewing school liaison officers, recognition of Black History Month, and other such initiatives, and develop recommendations as required on what policies and frameworks could be implemented and where required to embed anti-racism in the school district. And that would be my amendment.
Okay, so we're looking at we've got the motion.
Oh, thank you so much for putting that up.
So are you moving all parts of this at once, or? I
mean, I can, I'll leave it up to you, Chair, to think if that makes sense, or, you know, I can move it each as a pit. I don't necessarily think it needs to be moved individually. It doesn't drastically change what's being put up here. It's removing some language and adding some language to make it a bit more broad focused.
Yeah, no, I'm comfortable in doing it in one, unless I'm not seeing any. Put you guys over. I got 2 screens. Haha. Here we go. 2 monitors pay off. Okay, so is everybody comfortable with moving we're really just looking at point 1 and 2? We're comfortable with that?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. Sorry, number 1 should not be in there. Sorry. Yeah, just point 1 and point 2.
Yes. Okay. Trustee Leonard and then Trustee Rob Painter.
Well, it is dramatically increasing the role of the ad hoc committee. So we have to.
Point of order. Do we have a seconder for this?
Oh, thank you, Diane. Do we have a seconder? Trustee Rob Painter is a second. Trustee Leonard, go ahead.
My point was, it is dramatically changing what the terms of reference are for that committee. So it is way more broad than we started out with that committee being. And I'm not comfortable just changing this motion to include all this. If it's going to be a subsequent motion that after this motion is put forward and it's passed, then you could add other things to it at some later date, but no, I don't think it's it's a easy amendment for this committee to just add all this to it.
Okay, Trustee Rob Painter.
I guess my thoughts are of a similar vein to Trustee Leonard's. My thought, however, would be that if within the terms of reference of the committee, we can prioritize the school liaison officers program, because I do believe that that's a primary issue here at this point in time, and also that we direct the committee to report out as recommendations are developed, rather than say waiting until every element of the of what is proposed here has been hammered out. And I think that might work to keep it operating in sort of or reporting to the board in a regular fashion. Thank you.
Trustee McNally.
Chair, could you put my name on?
Oh, right. I'm sorry, Tom.
Oh, wait.
Your screen went dark there. I'll go to Trustee McNally and then we'll get to you, Trustee Ferris.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I want to voice my support for Trustee Leonard's observations that this really broadens the potential work of the Ad Hoc Committee. So these are important points that are being brought up here, but I don't believe adding them now will maintain the actually quite urgent focus, given what's happening in our communities, the quite urgent focus on police in schools. So I can't support the amendment.
Trustee Ferris.
Sure, thank you. I just want to point out that this is a pretty highly charged subject in the community. And as we've heard from a couple of staff members, the police liaison officers have made a significant contribution to the district. And I really think that the original motion is focusing on that work, and I think that's what we need to do. So I won't be supporting the amendments.
Okay, any other speakers? Trustee Whitaker.
Thank you. Can I make the suggestion that what I am envisioning and what I think needs to happen is that this is part of the ad hoc terms of reference, that I think that the focus needs to be on the first 2 points of the original motion, but that perhaps the committee can take a look at making recommendations on other items that they bump into. I think that maybe there's some way to send this to the committee to keep these as thoughts in mind as they do their work. Because it's likely that they're going to bump into these things during that work. So maybe we don't need to change the motions, but that this needs to be added to the terms of reference that is going to be created, because the making of the ad hoc committee requires that a terms of reference is going to be written and brought forward to the board. So it's just a thought that I think that this work can all happen just in a different manner.
Okay, Trustee Painter, do you want to close?
Yeah, I actually really appreciate Trustee Whitaker's comments. So Chair, if with your indulgence, I'll withdraw my amendment because I actually think Trustee Whitaker's comments are well placed. And I appreciate the comments being made around the table that we should focus on the school liaison officers, and maybe, as Trustee Whitaker has said, if these other incidences or issues or initiatives pop up as we do that work, I think that's wise. So I'm happy to withdraw the motion.
You just don't get to withdraw the motion because it's now on the table.
Oh, okay, well, fine then.
You'll withdraw with approval.
Yeah, I think he can withdraw with.
Got my approval. Chair, I'd like to propose an amendment.
Go ahead.
Thank you. To add, and that the police liaison officer program in School District 61 be suspended until the board considers the implication of the report from the committee for continuing the program or not. My rationale for that motion is we have received, I didn't count them, but I would bet 30 or 40 emails from parents, community members, and students saying they're not comfortable with the police liaison programs in schools. And so to create comfort for the many people that we've heard from who actually experience the service, that would be students, and undoubtedly they've spoken to their parents about their discomfort. That's my reason for hoping you'll support my amendment. Continuing the program or not, please.
Do we have a seconder?
Chair,
Trustee
can you
Painter?
get that at the end, please? Continuing the program or not?
I'm not sure if we can do that live, but certainly I've got it. We've got it. Or not at the end there. Trustee Painter? Ryan Painter?
Yeah, I wanted to speak in favor, and I'm speaking in favor for several reasons. But before I do that, I want to acknowledge Ms. Chambers and Ms. Golden for speaking tonight so passionately on this issue. As people who have had direct engagement on this issue, I think it's really important, and I'm really happy that we've heard from them. There is a lot of the community that we still haven't heard from, and I think what I have heard, and I'm definitely recognizing the work of the Support Network for Indigenous Women and Women of Color. I'm recognizing Hallelujah Hailu in Burnaby, who have said that there are students in the program in school who are uncomfortable at this point with liaison officers being there. So I think if we start the conversation about looking at this program with the liaison officers already in place, I think we actually do a disservice to the fulsome discussion that this program could engender, could have. What I envision is if we have a fulsome conversation about this, that would include the school liaison officers, by the way, because I think it should. And we decide that we want to maintain the program as a board, then what we could do is we could have a more engaging welcoming in ceremony, or something that actually welcomes these police officers back into the community, which can help them build a sense of community as they have been reporting to us they've been doing. I had the occasion over the weekend to do a garage sale pickup for my partner in Saanich. And the person who I delivered to was a former Saanich school liaison officer. And they said to me that their 3 to 4 years in the program was the best in their career, and that they wouldn't have traded it for anything. That's feedback that's important to me and that I needed to hear. And the other feedback I've heard from other IBPOC members of the school community is that they don't necessarily feel safe right now with school liaison officers. But again, we've heard, I think the committee needs to hear this, but I think if the committee hears this, or the ad hoc committee hears this with the liaison officers still in place, it does a disservice to the conversation. So that's why I'm supporting this, because I think if we start from zero and then welcome them in, if we decide to go in that direction, it can be with full community input. So that's why I'm supporting the motion.
Okay, I've got Trustee Whitaker.
Thank you. I can't support this motion, and I don't think anyone else should support this motion. I think by putting in that you are going to remove these school liaison officers before the committee has done the work actually predetermines the work of the committee, which is against every process that we should embrace. So I can't support it based on number one, you're predetermining the outcome of this, of what the committee is going to do by saying, okay, they're gone. So I have a problem with that in a very large way. I would also speak to Trustee McNally's comment that we'd received 30 emails. We received 30 form letters that were exactly the same letter. I don't believe that any one of those people in there made any comment to any real data about kids feeling unsafe. They made comments that data was there, but didn't provide any data. And as trustees, we have a responsibility to act based on data. We have the MDI and the EDI. We have many different real data, evidence-based, that provides information. And many of them talk to us about how our students are not feeling safe in school. And I promise you, the top three have nothing to do with the school police liaison officer. We should be focusing our efforts on those top three items, which have, again, nothing to do with the police liaison officer. In fact, the police liaison officer helps them with the top three items. So I can't support this at all. I just find it incredibly offensive.
Trustee Hensa.
Yeah, thanks. A little bit echoing Trustee Whitaker. Yeah, we got a bunch of form letters in which nobody presented a direct experience that was negative. We've heard a few people who presented direct experiences that were positive, and I think reacting to sort of this mob email by doing this very hastily is premature. I think that we do need to go through the process. And I think it's a little bit of a moot point during COVID because, I mean, we've got 2 months off and then we're going to come back, and it's not like we're going to be having the big assemblies and bike rodeos and, you know, the things that the school liaison officers are really involved in anyway for the next little while. And I just think we need to let the committee do their work and not presuppose any outcome. And I think the idea of kicking everybody out only to welcome them back in with open arms is actually, yeah, I think offensive is the right word.
Any other speakers to the amendment?
If I could close, Chair.
Go ahead.
Thank you. If my motion were truly offensive, as Trustee Whitaker has characterized it, the chair would have ruled it out of order. I have huge personal objection to my motion, which is a straightforward motion being called offensive. I've been in personal touch with many members of the community who would back this 100%. They aren't trustees, they're not voting here, but there's a huge segment of the population in our city and our school district who would find this a perfectly reasonable motion. That's my close.
Okay, all those in favor of the amendment? All those opposed? So the motion fails. Was Trustee Rob Painter, Ryan Painter, and Diane McNally in favor? Okay, so we're back to the main motion. Any speakers?
Can you show me what the actually where we're at looks like again? I'm sorry, it just disappeared.
It's just the motion just with your one amendment to say ad hoc committee. So it's the original one.
Thank you.
Okay, if there are no speakers, then I will call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? No, that was unanimous. Good. I look very much forward to the report of that committee. It's really important work. Okay, so now we're moving on to the audit committee report. So I believe Rob Painter, you're the chair, right? Can I turn it over to you? Or is that the secretary treasurer?
I would recommend handing it over to someone who actually knows what they're talking about. So.
Well, that'll be secretary treasurer Morris. Go ahead.
Okay, and Katrina can chime in here anytime. At the audit committee meeting, we did speak to 2 auditors from KPMG via Zoom, and they presented the audit plan. The interim audit was completed in June. The final audit of the financial statements will occur in July, and the approval of the financial statements, of course, in September. The audit plan included some outlining of materiality and how COVID may impact the audit in terms of distancing and things like that. It was largely a rollover plan from the previous year. And nothing really to note in there unless Katrina had anything to add. Should I do them all 3 or? Yep. Okay. So
yeah, sorry, I was muted. Please go ahead. It's 9:42. If we can do them all together, I say we should.
Yeah, the second recommendation was to award a 3rd year extension of a possible 3-year extension. So the last year into 2021 audit fees of $27,500. For the 21-22 school year, we would go out for RFP and check the marketplace again. So looking for approval on that. And then the quarterly financial report, Katrina presented an in-depth report on the 3rd quarter of the year with revenues and expenses being within 1 to 1.5% of the previous year.
Okay, can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Trustee Leonard, Trustee Rob Painter. Do any of our partners have any questions? Comments? No. Okay, any speakers to the motion? Nobody's clamoring at this one, so I will call the question. All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you, trustees. Now we move to the Advocacy Ad Hoc Committee Student Assessment and Reporting, which is page 82 of the pack-up, and I'll pass it over to Trustee Duncan and Trustee Whitaker.
Actually, I believe, and Trustee Whitaker, you can correct me, we were going to have our chair or
we can go either way.
had we made a plan?
I don't think we had a plan, but go for it. Present it. There is a memo here. Hang on, I got to find the right page. Where is Nicole now?
It's really difficult to hear Nicole. So if you have the option of
just tell me the
presenting,
exact page number here again.
82. So if you have the option of presenting, that's
I'm
better.
really close. Just hang on. 79.
Okay.
That's right. 82.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, this. No, that's not. Next page. Sorry. Yeah. So here is we have in your package on page 82 the report based on you sent the motion to our committee that the Board of Education support the call from the GVTA supporting student assessment during this period of pandemic to the end of the school year via letter of advocacy. You can see that we had some discussions on that, and we've come up with the following recommendations from that motion on our discussions. Number 1, that the advocacy committee require an extension of more time to fully examine these issues. There was just no way to look at the reporting, especially in this timeline by the end of the year. But we also acknowledge that we believe that we're going to be doing a lot of this COVID online, in classroom, very different instruction that we would like to be able to have the opportunity to look at reporting through that again. We also wanted to review the reporting guidelines provided by the teachers in the district, and I believe that those were all sent out to all of trustees as well to have the opportunity to review and have that same information. Have the district team prepare a document for parents, as the team did in the spring of 2020, to be distributed by schools in September 2020, which outlines how students at each grade level will be evaluated. Knowing again that students would be coming back to a different learning environment, we thought it would be a very good idea and to support our teachers for parent questions, that if how they were going to be graded and evaluated was provided to parents at the beginning of the year, this might head off some problems down the road. We also wanted to revisit the topic in the fall after the district had the opportunity to experience a reporting cycle while remote learning has been there. So those are what we are looking for approval on. Any questions?
Trustee Rob Painter.
Could I just get clarification of which of our partner groups were participating in the committee?
Advocacy. Advocacy is 2 trustees and the Associate Superintendent Roberts, right? Yeah. Trustee McNally.
Well, this is an interesting offshoot from my motion, which is stated at the top and was referred to this committee. The intent of the motion was simply to recognize that teachers were under a tremendous amount of stress given what's happened during this period of pandemic, and to honor their call for reduced reporting requirements just for this semester. So I'm not quite sure how the committee teased out all these interesting questions from that. I hope some other trustees will have some opinions on it, and I'm sorry our GTA rep hasn't commented. I'd be curious to know.
Trustee Leonard.
So hearing from Trustee McNally about the original intent of the motion, and that was my recollection too, maybe the committee can give us a little background as to why they've gone into a broader approach and talking about next year's reporting.
Yeah, we did discuss it, and in that it was determined that many discussions had already occurred and plans had already been made for this reporting period, and that really this is coming far too, by the time we were handling it, it was far too late. You know, it's clear, it wasn't going to the end to say, this is what you're doing. We also didn't have enough information that we could get, thus you were sent out the information on reporting guidelines before we could write the letter. We just didn't have enough information.
Trustee Leonard.
So as a follow-up then, I'm still not hearing, are you then anticipating that once you gather all this information, you're proposing something for next year's reporting, or you're just regrouping and sort of saying what we could have said for this year? I'm not really clear here.
What we're looking for is for more time, number one,
right?
We couldn't fully examine this. And in what we did, where we were able to examine, we determined that there were definitely concerns from parents that could be addressed by providing more information on reporting. We also determined, what else we got here? We also determined that we needed to actually have a full reporting cycle before we could speak to it. What we knew through this is we did not have enough information to speak to this, to have a full understanding of how reporting was working through COVID.
Trustee Ryan Painter.
just a question to Trustee Whitaker. Am I correct in assuming that this is future casting to a potential time when we may have another situation where we have to consider maybe a shortening of a reporting period, and that's why you're asking for this more time, you're looking for more opportunities and possibilities to review and come back, because there could be a potential for doing something like this again? Am I feeling that right?
Yeah, we're feeling that we're going to be looking at the same situation and reporting in the fall, and that hopefully what we're doing is we're getting ahead of these concerns. Would be very interested in hearing from the GVTA and the rest of our partner groups as to how it went. And I appreciate Trustee McNally bringing the motion forward when she did. It was too late for us to get ahead of any of it.
Thank you.
Trustee Duncan, and then I'm hoping we can move on. We've got quite a agenda left.
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to try, if I can, if everyone can hear me. What I wanted to do was just to try to elaborate a little bit on what Trustee Whitaker said around the timeline. I think what we met once as a committee on the 1st of June in order to be able to consider this at all. However, and I think what we very quickly discovered is that there's a lot of complexity here that initially, certainly I did not appreciate, around all the different guidelines that apply to different grade levels, around the various pieces of legislative direction, who has power to do what, and so on, that really we would need to consider it properly in order to be able to put anything meaningful down on paper. And so we wanted to do it justice in the short term.
Winona, did you want to comment before we move on?
I do. I'll keep it quick, Chair. I know how late it is. I appreciate that the Advocacy Ad Hoc Committee went and did this work. What we were looking for is about report cards at the beginning of June, and sort of it was more of an urgent, like asking for a letter in support of reducing the report cards. There's currently a committee that's been created at the provincial level that will direct reporting going forward. I'm not sure how much ability trustees have to influence what that committee says. I think there will be provincial decisions around the ministerial mandate on what reporting looks like. It is mandated. And so although I appreciate that the district is now taking this seriously and looking at this, I'm not clear that it'll be time well spent, given that there's a provincial committee also looking at this that will come up with provincial guidelines that will direct our work should we be in still in a situation where we're partially teaching remotely.
Okay, thank you. District Leadership Team Report, Superintendent.
Sorry, Chair, I think we missed one of our partners. I think wanted to...
Oh, I'm so sorry. Go ahead, please.
Thanks. I you know what, I see this report and I'm just really struck by the lack, or maybe I just think for any such discussion that you need parents and parent feedback and what kind of reporting they need. You know, at this time with the stresses of not only teaching my kids at home, I would like more feedback, not less. And I fully support this going to the provincial level because I know BC PAC is there and a fully engaged stakeholder on such a fundamental issue.
Okay, not seeing any further speakers. We'll move to the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Chair. Just for notification on timing, I know that we're getting late, so just my monthly report is there for folks to have seen and put forward to accept the report as presented, 83.
Trustee Whitaker and Trustee Leonard. Any questions, comments? Trustee Ryan Painter?
No, I'm
Nope.
okay. Sorry.
All those in favor of accepting the report? Any opposed? Nope. Okay, that's unanimous. So now we'll move on to the Craig Flower consultation process.
Just this one's
exciting.
Component. We have, as per previous conversations, started to enter into a consultation about consultation. So knowing we need to bring back a consultation process to the board in regards to Craig Flower and Shoreline, we've entered in with school communities and with our 2 nations. So had a conversation with the Esquimalt Nation Council to present the concept of Craig Flower Shoreline. Many of them are brand new, and so this was new information to them. They were very intrigued, and once we finished explaining what we were looking for from them, they asked to take that away, and they will be referring back to us on what they would like to see in a consultation process, but they certainly want it to be robust with lots of different layers so that they can feel that they can have input into that. We weren't able to follow up with the same conversation, although we haven't recently for Songhees Nations, but there's definitely been ongoing conversations, and the newness of it is not as extensive for them. So we will follow up with that, and same thing with staff. So we hope that within the next couple of weeks, we'll get some feedback back from both nations and from the school district on looking at what a fulsome report on a process for consultation will be when you bring it back to the board. Questions on any of that? Seeing none, we have the Mount Doug on page 85, just a review of a very inappropriate and disturbing scenario that occurred a couple of weeks ago with the yearbook and having through Jostens a place to be signing each other's yearbooks. Codes were given to students to be able to allow friends or relationships to do that. Unfortunately, some of the codes got widely spread, and there was a very unfortunate incident with very derogatory remarks, racist and sexist to 4 particular students. When we were notified late on a Saturday night of what that looked like, the principal, vice principal, and associate kitchen followed up with the report that you see in front of you, which was advising police departments and Jostens and following up with parents and families and giving support for our students throughout the week as it went along, making sure that we got the actual remarks off of the Jostens website, and then getting Jostens to remove those students exclusively out of this site. Even though there's 700,000 students on it, we wanted our students off. Police have initiated an investigation, and so has Safer Schools. And Safer Schools has a little bit more depth to be able to work with Jostens one-to-one, to be able to go into their actual site on looking at the connection to, so that we can hopefully track who actually did this and follow up with that piece. We did find out that there was some students that reinitiated the link. Apparently you can go onto that site and platform yourself. And so we also sent a letter home to our families to ask them to talk to their children to not reinitiate that link, that it was very disturbing for many of our people. And of course, the follow-up is to reach out with our IT department and certainly our staff, principals and vice principals, that if it's a link outside of our system, that we need to put the protocols in place. And we will be doing that through our admin policies, so people know what steps to take if they're going to connect into anything that's outside of our system, to make sure that it's safe for our students and our staff.
Thank you so much, Superintendent. Trustees, do you have any, or do our partners? I know trustees have had quite a comprehensive briefing on this as it emerged. Are there any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, we'll move right along to the workplace safety report. Superintendent?
Yes, and this was a motion brought forward by one of our trustees, and so I will have Marnie please follow up with the workplace safety report on page 105.
Hello, everyone. I'm having some technical difficulties. So I can't hear you through my computer, but I have you on my phone. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Great, thank you. So I have prepared a memorandum that's intended to be an interim report for up to the end of April for the statistics. Noting that with our school year cycle that I'll provide a more complete report that will allow for some year-end analysis early in the fall in either September or October board meetings. The motion called for indicators on compliance with workplace safety legislation. One of those is our workplace claims that we experience. So I've provided the summary by employee group for both this year and the previous year for comparison between September and April. The District Occupational Health and Safety Committee receives these numbers as well as a brief description of the incident behind them and are able to make recommendations from those. The only comment this year was on the number of slip and falls associated with the snowfall. And in the second set of statistics is on the violent incidents, which has been the focus of a lot of work over the last years. These can range from anything from one child striking or yelling at another child to a worker being kicked or struck. The committee's commented that we're looking for a way to provide a more qualitative analysis so to better identify trends. In terms of strategic level of improvement, I've provided for your reference 2 inspection reports that we received from WorkSafe as a result of violent incidents in our schools. One was at Oakland and one was at Macaulay. And I provided the full text of those orders for your information. I've then gone on to provide a summary of the work undertaken in order to resolve those 2 orders. The Oakland's one has been resolved, and we're still working through the violent risk assessment process to resolve the Macaulay order. So I've reported on the work undertaken on the violence prevention plan manual to make it more readable, bring it into context with the education environment, and create linkages between worker safety plans and IEPs and the plans surrounding the children and the support for the children. We've invested in significant amount of training to bring CPI training to more of our EAs. And the violence risk assessment process has been an undertaking since the new year. We identified 7 schools to initiate that. They were our schools with many of the incidents that we experienced, and the work is underway to provide the analysis behind that, but there was a worker survey that went out, and you can see the response rate there. And with the gathering of the data, we're analyzing our policies, including the violence prevention plan manual, to update that and relaunch it for the next school year. Since spring break, COVID has consumed much energy operationally, and I have provided the school site procedures that were developed in consultation with the key ministry documents and with the District Occupational Health and Safety Committee and the leadership team that has been supporting our COVID response, along with the BC Centre for Disease Control guidance for the K-12 system. Those 2 documents are intended to work together and are the foundation of all of our operational decisions with respect to schools to ensure that we can minimize any risk from COVID.
Hey, thank you so much, Marnie. Do any of our partners, I guess we're not, this isn't a motion, so I'll just go straight to the first hand I see, which was Trustee McNally. Anybody else, please indicate and I'll get you on the list.
Thanks so much, Marnie, for the report. I have two questions, no, one question. And it's on I've got page 87. I'm not sure my pages are the same as everybody else's, but page 87. In training, the last point, the district has provided training logs for the EAs at Oaklands who are or may be working with children with the risk of violent or aggressive behavior. Could you tell me what the training logs are? And why are they only at Oaklands when, I mean, we've had 2 submissions on unsafe work, and they could be useful.
That's in response to the specifics of the Oakland's order, where the deficiency was found in the instruction and training of the EAs there. The Macaulay order was broader. So there was a focus on making sure that the EAs at Oakland's were trained and that there was tracking for that in response directly to the order.
So just to be clear, a training log means that a person would sign on that they've received the appropriate training. Thank you.
Okay, Trustee Duncan.
Yeah, thank you. Chair, I just wanted to say thank you. I think it's great. I really appreciate the fact that staff have been able to bring forward an interim report. Clearly there's been a great deal of work being undertaken around a lot of these areas. I'm just wondering whether or not this report reflects all of the recommendations that we've had from our district occupational health and safety committee. And if the intention is to include those as they relate to operational and strategic level improvement.
The report does not contain all of the recommendations from DOSH, but there has been a number related directly to COVID, so I've referenced that, and that responses to those are either complete or underway. In terms of the, I guess, ongoing nature of the discussions at DOSH, there are recommendations related to things like requesting that there are purchase of defibrillators, automatic defibrillators for all schools. That is not represented here.
Okay, I don't see any other questions. Thank you so much, Marnie. We're moving to the next. Oh, Crystal, go ahead.
I do have a question. So I'm just reading this report and I'm thinking about, this is about protecting the adults in the room where there's a student who has violence or aggression towards adults. But I'm trying to look at your framework for kids. And I'm just trying to figure out what, if any, of this tracks to protecting other kids from, kids who are violent. Is there a reporting mechanism? Are you tracking that? How are you communicating to the kids in the classroom about how do you train the kids in the classroom, for example, how to deal with a kid with a history of violence? I guess 2 questions. One is, if this is happening at the adult level, I'm also assuming it's happening at the kids level. And what kind of training or supports are you providing to the other kids in this? What's the framework for those at the kids level?
That's beyond the mandate of this report. This report is in the context of work-safe legislation and focused on the workers. So your questions really speak to the educational environment and don't fall within this.
Okay, but that doesn't mean it's not an issue that you guys should be think I would have thought.
Superintendent Green is indicating she might have a response for you.
So the second half of this motion, Crystal, will be the next report you're looking for, which has all the multi-layers that we deal with students who might be having any of these experiences and the work we do around that.
That's page 1 of the packet.
Can we move to that report? I'm not seeing any further questions on the workplace report. Let's move to E1E Student Health and Safety Report. Secretary or Superintendent?
Harold, can you please give us an overview of that report?
Hey everyone, this is page 105 of your pack-up, and I just want to point out that in the motion it asked for a report on the operation of the district's student health and safety framework. We do not have an official health and safety framework with regards to students, but we do have processes that we use within our district to support our students' health and safety within the schools. What I've listed for you in those pages at the elementary, middle, and secondary level are those processes that support the safety and well-being of our students within our classrooms. Starting first off, and I didn't put it there, but every school has a school-based team that includes learning support teachers, counselors, classroom teacher, administrators that support children at that level where we know they have the best relationship. If it's not working at that level and we see other issues arising, then we're going to support it through a district lens. And the first on my list underneath elementary is our district-based team, which is a problem-solving meeting with the district counselor, the student, the families, and school staff to support the student and continue to look at ways to improve their experience and really, frankly, going back to the comment earlier, to improve the experience of all students in that classroom who may be impacted. A couple of the other processes that we look at if we're talking about violence is our violent threat risk assessment. We've talked a little bit about that and we call that a VITRA. And that's where we actually bring in training for our staff within the school, particularly the counselor and the administrators, to support looking at how do we reduce violence within that child, within the school, so that we don't get to the place where we see really intense behaviors within classrooms. And whenever we do that, we come out of that with a plan that supports that child and ultimately supporting the classroom and the staff around it as well. We did something a little different in our training. By the way, we have a school-based VITRA team, but we also have a district-based VITRA team, and it includes members of our community partners as well. We talked a little bit earlier about Police Liaison. They are a part of the VITRA team. We've talked about Island Health. They are part of the VITRA team, and MCFD is also part of that team. So if it's a bigger question of child safety, we bring these partners in to look at developing safety plans to support their time at school. At the elementary level, I put in there just a little bit, we do what's called a pre-VITRA for elementary. A kindergartner is not necessarily going to experience the same sort of behaviors that someone in grade 5 might be experiencing, for example. So we do a pre-VITRA just to take a look at what does it look like for that child at that developmental stage that they're at. Moving through, we offer nonviolent crisis intervention training through CPI, and we do that with all of our staff. So teachers, educational assistants, and admin, it's available for staff to support work within schools. Counselor collaboration has been a very big part of our health and safety processes, particularly when it comes to making sure that all of our counselors all have the same training when it comes to things like anxiety, suicidal ideation, community resources, what's out there for the community to support students within our buildings. We invite our community partners to a community fair every year where they come and work with our learning support teachers, our counselors, our administrators, and provide the services or at least examine what services they can offer to our families and students within our community. Every school has access to youth and family counselor service within our building as well. And these youth and family counselors are important to go out into the homes, to look at the environment that these students are in, and to really connect vulnerable youth to services within our community as well. Snapshots, you've seen those. I want to say that currently our snapshots for the year, which contain everything on social emotional learning, substance use, anxiety and mental health issues for our secondary and middle students, we're currently at about 61,000 reads of those snapshots for this school year, which far exceeded our expectation in terms of connecting with our families and our staff, because these are also very important for staff to look at, because this information is being shared with them and with families and with students. We also we talk about that maintaining of language within our system, starting at our very basic K through 2. We've introduced within our district in a big way the second step social emotional learning program, where we're talking about language to support at that level for students within the school to help with that social emotional piece of the work that they do, or that we do within our district. I'm not sure if you're all aware, but every one of our schools have a critical incidents response team, and we have a district critical incidents response team as well that can respond to those incidents with schools where there's traumatic events, where we need some deeper intervention to support the school, whether it be at a single family level, which could be the death of a student, or it could be just the school-based team responding to a number of traumatic events at the school level. We also have social emotional wellness advocates to support this work within our school as well. And every one of our schools has at least one social emotional wellness advocate to do that. So if we really take a look at all of the stuff that we do, we have a number of big processes that support the work of health and safety for students. And there are a number more listed there. Happy for you to look through them. And if you have any other questions, I'm happy to look at those as well.
Crystal, then Nicole, then Rob.
Thank you for that breakdown. I wanted to ask two questions. One about your critical incident response team, which I understand is, they go in and they deal with a traumatic event, but in there, I don't see any critical incident reviews or reports, written reviews or reports that are circulated with the goal of identifying mistakes and or preventing future occurrences. Is that part of the framework? And the second one is, I'm driving the point home for a reason, and I want you to understand I fully appreciate the difference between occupational health and safety. I also understand the reasons behind occupational health and safety legislation, being that it's necessary to ensure workers are safe. And I have just seen a report where you have identified that there is a problem with violence in the classroom for the teachers, which can only lead to the conclusion that there's also violence faced by kids in the classroom. And my question is, do you record and report incidents of violence against kids? And how are you ensuring that kids in the classroom where there is violence are provided with the same seriousness and intention around staying safe in that environment? Because clearly the adults need it. And so where is that for the kids?
So first off, with critical incidents, I'm not when I talk about a critical incident, I'm not talking about student to student typically. It is more on the bigger level. The death of a student would be a critical incident. The death of a staff member would be a critical incident. And we do track those, and we do follow up with all of our schools with support, including referring our staff to our provider, and also by following up with kids that we identify that need the support because of the trauma engaged with the critical incident.
But you're not answering my question. My question is, do you do critical incident review and reporting with a goal to never have that happen again? Like what happened after, what kind of report was written and distributed after that child died at Camp Bernard? That's the kind of reporting I'm looking for. That's a totally different kind of reporting than, counseling for traumatic events, which is really important, and I'm glad you do it. But I want to know about that different kind of reporting.
Okay. I'm going to move on just so we don't get too sidetracked here. Trustee McNally. And then Trustee Duncan.
Thanks. I don't know if everybody's seeing this green flashing. There's nothing I can do about it here. It's pretty weird. Maybe it'll settle down. Thanks for this report. Harold, you said at the beginning that the district has no official framework for student health and safety, and I'm wondering if that's a provincial kind of non-standard, or should we have one? It sounds like we should, and I'd like to hear some comment on that.
Yeah, there is no provincial standard that says we have a health and safety framework specific to students.
Shelley?
So there's, as people are aware on this platform, we have health and safety in the workplace. And that's the initial part that Marnie is going over. And there's some very clear protocols and procedures that we do with health and safety in the workplace and follow those guidelines. For our students, there are multiple layers. Doesn't fit a framework like a health and safety department does in a building on how to be following protocols and procedures, then things like how to clean, or through COVID, the distance component, which gives us some very clear guidelines. Within students, as you can see from Harold's report, we have multiple different layers of responses on different scenarios for kids that we follow up on. With the question that was just asked, do we look at an incident that happened and review how it went to make sure that it doesn't happen again, and follow up on the components of choices they're in? Of course we do. We don't want any incidents or accidents to happen, and we have procedures for every single one of those capacities too. As health and safety guideline frameworks, like a building is, or procedures on cleaning is, students are almost a one-to-one correspondent, but you can see all the layers that we have built in to every single layer responding to those pieces, and they just develop and become part of it. So it's not the same structures. We're kind of comparing apples to oranges.
Okay, I'm just a little concerned about where we are in our agenda, that it's 10:23 here. So I'm hoping we can move forward. We can ask any of our questions in email, or we can revisit this at a committee meeting. But I'd like to move on to the student anaphylaxis aggregate report at page 108.
And as per every year, the aggregate report is there for trustees.
Trustee Duncan, I realize I had you on the list there. Did you want to go quickly?
I guess maybe I do have a number of questions. I think some of the discussion that we're having tonight is useful, and I think it's highlighting, one of the reasons that I brought forward two different motions. And yeah, so I guess what I would ask is we'll have a further report in the fall, or is this intended to be the only report we'll receive?
If you were speaking to Marnie's report, because I lost you partway through that.
Oh, sorry, Shelley. No, I was just referring, so I'm clear that in terms of staff, health and safety, it's an interim report and we will receive another report in September. I'm wondering in relation to the student health and safety report, if we'll receive another report in September, is this also an interim report?
I think, Trustee Duncan, you're going to have to look at that motion and perhaps have a conversation with us about what exactly it is you're looking for, because right now the motion doesn't fit a structure like the health and safety report does that Marnie does. So I think we need to be a little bit clearer on what exactly it is that you are looking for in and around student health and safety.
Yeah, if there was a lack of clarity, I'm absolutely happy to sit down and have those conversations. And considering that it's late, and there is offline.
Okay, Shelley.
That's it for me, just trustee questions.
Trustee Ryan Painter.
Thank you, Chair. I actually don't know if this is meant more for Shelley or for for the superintendent or the secretary treasurer. So I'm happy to defer to Secretary Treasurer Morris's report, but it's just around the Vic High amenities piece. I have received a couple emails from some parents of Vic High students, specifically around the all-weather turf field, and curious about getting data from the consultations that was had in the stakeholder gatherings and stuff, and maybe because of lateness of the night, or it may just be because I don't remember. I know that Vic High amenities came to us in March, but I don't remember what we were provided with necessarily, and I'm not sure what, if anything, we can make available. But I'm wondering if just maybe, and maybe this is for Kim for her report, I'm happy to push through to that if it makes more sense. But I'm just curious about an update, because there are a couple parents who have chatted with me about it who are really wanting that all-weather turf field.
Kim?
Shelley?
No, it's Kim.
Kim, Secretary Treasurer.
So yeah, the consultation plan was included, I believe, in the March. I haven't checked on your inquiry yet, Ryan. I just received it today. So it was brought to an open board meeting with the consultation report and the survey results from the amenities survey. And the board passed a motion that night on what they were going to support in the amenities discussion. So I can try to forward that to you tomorrow.
Yeah, no rush, Kim. I understand I brought that to you this morning and it was kind of late timing. So absolutely no rush on that. I just wanted to make sure I didn't forget.
Okay, Kim, can you carry on with your report?
Yep. I provide my report on page 110 for information and any questions.
Trustee McNally?
Thank you. Through the chair to our Secretary Treasurer, I wonder if I could have a bit more information on the eScribe implementation meeting, what the ongoing issues are, and what's going to be addressed next, just general progress.
The eScribe implementation meeting was a meeting of staff members to discuss the next steps in implementation as we move into next year and the added functionality of eScribe. We didn't discuss any issues. It was how to move forward with the next phase of implementation in preparation for trustee training in August.
Thank you.
Okay, would somebody like to move that we receive the report as presented? Trustee Ryan Painter, Trustee Hensa. All those in favor? And that's unanimous. I can't see Tom. So it's unanimous without him, we'll say, and we'll move to the annual budget bylaw.
Unfortunately, I can't see you either.
Oh. Okay. You are there, good. Secretary Treasurer?
I have nothing to present. This third reading was not given on May 25th, and so it lies here for the board to consider with the ministry's deadline being June 30th.
I'll put down the floor.
Thank you, Trustee Leonard. Trustee Hensa, did you second? Thank you. So the motion is that the Board of School District number 61, Greater Victoria 2020-2021 annual budget bylaw in the amount of 253,606,307 be read a third time, passed and adopted the 22nd day of June 2020, and that the secretary, treasurer, and the board chair be authorized to sign, seal, and execute this bylaw on behalf of the board. All those in favor? All those opposed? So Trustee Rob Painter and Diane McNally opposed, and the motion carries. Now we move to our 5-year capital plan.
The 5-year, oops, sorry, is that me again?
Yep, it's you, yep.
And I'll ask Chuck Morris to chime in anytime, our Director of Facilities. I believe there's a fairly simple and concise report attached to the agenda starting on page 126. And this is similar to previous years where the board has approved its capital plan in June. Any questions?
Trustee Rob Painter and then Trustee Nicole Duncan.
Thank you. I'm hoping for a bit of clarification about the Category 1 additions, both Sundance Elementary and Lansdowne. And just with respect to Sundance, if it would be possible to offer any kind of comment about the future state of Banks Street School, if it's being incorporated in this or if it remains a completely different entity. I was just trying to understand as I went through the different elements how that piece fit in.
Chuck and team, do you want to take that one?
Sure. Sundance Elementary, the old brick building in its current state, we cannot use it. So we're actually have a meeting with City of Victoria and an architect and hazardous material people on Friday at that site.
And the Lansdowne edition?
I beg your pardon?
And the Lansdowne edition?
I don't have a lot of up-to-date information on the addition. Last conversation with Jim on this was that it's something that we do need to do. And if we, it's a simple piece to do because of the land availability there and the location where he's thinking the addition should go.
Trustee Rob Painter. And then we'll go to Nicole.
So if I understand then, the Sundance Elementary expansion is strictly limited to the Sundance footprint and schoolyard and does not impact the Bank Street side of it, of the property at all. And the Lansdowne one, from personally recognizing that other issues are at play on that particular piece of property, I think it's essential that we get some sort of understanding of what is envisioned for Lansdowne here. Final thought is that although this has nothing to do with the capital plan, I have to admit I'm surprised after going through the boundary review process that we're now looking at expanding a middle school by 300 seats when to avoid those sorts of developments.
So Sundance, the addition will be attached to Sundance and will be located between Sundance and the old brick building with the appropriate setbacks. It'll be 6 or 7 classrooms, I believe.
Thanks.
And I can't comment further at this point because I wasn't prepared for further conversation on the Lansdowne portion.
Bolin can add a point to there.
Thank you. Maybe I can add just some clarification to both items. The current Sundance building has a capacity of 89 students. There's also a portable that's available on the site that we're anticipating could be used as a supplementary space, but the desire to see the entire site be increased to 200 would require an upgrade to the existing Bank Street building. So Sundance, as it currently stands, has a capacity of just 90 students. With respect to Lansdowne Middle School, the 300-seat addition is the number of additional seats that have been added to Lansdowne in total by the inclusion of Richmond Elementary as that South Satellite campus. And so Richmond as an elementary school had a capacity of in excess of 300, but with the conversion of some of the regular classrooms into exploratory spaces, that now adds to 300 seats to the 600 existing at the main site. And so we're anticipating, like for this coming school year, about 480 students at the main Lansdowne site, about 240 at the Richmond site. And then as we know and expect our middle school numbers will grow, we're anticipating that, over a period of years, Lansdowne main campus and Lansdowne South will grow to in excess of 800 students, probably 840 is our most recent projection.
Trustee Duncan?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. My questions really echoed Trustee Rob Painter's, and I'm still unfortunately not clear on Lansdowne. So as I read this, we've got Richmond listed separately, and then Lansdowne listed. And that addition at Lansdowne would increase the capacity at Lansdowne, exclusive of any capacity at Richmond, to 850. Is that right? Am I reading that correctly?
There is no intent for SD 61 to create an addition at the main Lansdowne campus. That's not part of the plan that you approved at this time last year. The addition is really referring to the addition to Lansdowne's total capacity, but it is the Richmond site that will add those further 300 seats.
So it's just the way we're accounting for it. It is essentially by reflecting it in the capital plan this way. Sorry, could you hear me?
Yeah. So Chuck, would the Lansdowne Middle Addition be removed from the capital plan, given that Richmond will take up that enrollment growth?
Yes, yes, it will.
Okay, so we'll strike that from the capital plan.
We shall.
Okay, and then my other question was around Bank. So given, I think anybody that drives by the site can see plainly that it's in a bad state of disrepair. I'm wondering though, why we don't list it here. Is it just that we're not prepared yet to list it and really be confident as to what we're asking for? Are we to analyze the situation and put something meaningful in the capital plan?
I'm sorry, you were very broken up.
Sorry, I'll try that one more time. yeah, so I'm wondering why we haven't included bank in the capital plan. Is it because we don't have an idea yet about what we'd be asking because we haven't assessed the building?
We are we just had a hazardous material inspection done with a qualified vendor, and it's well over $1 million just to remove the hazardous materials out of there before any other kind of work can take place. The condition of that building, I've been all through it, and it is not a good building. What we end up looking at is if we have to put an application in for demolition, then we'll do that. In fact, one of the City of Victoria people coming to have a look at it on Friday is with the Heritage.
Elaine, did you have a question?
I do, and due to the lateness of the hour, I was hoping that the new school, the new downtown Victoria Elementary School in the Vic High catchment area could be included as an agenda item for September ops. Just so I think we need a fulsome discussion about that. And I know now that it's not the time.
We can do that.
Thank you.
So there's quite a bit of information in here, and it's pretty self-explanatory, aside from what we just went through.
Trustee Rob Painter, and then I'd like to move on.
I'll try to be quick. Just a general observation that there is a ton of really interesting information here, and clearly a lot to raise discussions about. It would be my hope that this might be the last year that we deal with the capital plan on the last board meeting of the school year, and that in the future we plan for a preliminary presentation at ops or something like that in advance, so that we can all get our questions out ahead of time and simply move to the adoption of the final plan if it does come in at the board meeting in June.
And I would think that's something we can definitely do.
I think it's
on the floor.
Thank you, Trustee Leonard. Do we have a seconder? Trustee Whitaker. All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Excellent. Let's move on to the statutory right away.
Okay, so we bring this right of way to the board for 3 readings of its bylaw. My understanding, and Chuck can verify, that this is to provide power, relocation and additional power to the Campus View portable pod, where we've moved portables around the campus and have grouped them such that they are pods. So this requires some statutory right of way for Hydro to power the pod.
Motion's on the floor.
So do we do these, all of them separately?
You have 3 motions recommended.
Okay, so the first one is that we approve the granting of a statutory right-of-way to BC Hydro and Power for the purpose of installing expanded services Campus View Elementary School, legally described as Lot A, Section 41, Victoria District Plan 11955, PID 004927818. Trustee Rob Painter.
We have a second?
Trustee Whitaker.
Thanks.
Yes, Trustee Painter.
Thank you. I just wonder if I could get an explanation of the necessity for the the right of way is, are we not, is this not providing the same service to the school and then branching off? Or is this a right of way that is on school property from Campus View Elementary out to the pod? I don't understand why we're doing a separate one.
If I may.
Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. The power that Hydro will be bringing in is an upgrade to the overall power for that complete site. The current power supply there is right on the borderline, and to add childcare in there wouldn't be enough power. So moving the portables together and upgrading them, we need a little bit more power. When we do work in the future inside the school, we will need a little more power. So the only way to do it was to have them provide a new power supply to us. It comes from across the street, and then they need, usually when they run power underground for you, you need a right of way for them to do so. So this is quite a win for Campus View.
Awesome, thank you. All those in favor? Okay, and that is unanimous.
Sorry, Chair. My webcam is not working, so I vote aye. I'm just gonna say it.
You do that. That's great.
Second motion.
I wish
on the
my
floor.
camera stopped working at about 10:30.
Second motion on the floor.
Okay, thank you. That the board agree to give all 3 readings of disposal right-of-way real property bylaw number 2002 at the June 22, 2020 board meeting.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Trustee Whitaker. All those in favor? And that's unanimous. And then the next motion
on the floor,
moved by Trustee Leonard, seconded by Trustee Ferris, that the board disposal right away of real property bylaw number 2002 being a bylaw to grant a statutory right of way to British Columbia Hydro and Power Authority on the property legally described as Lot A, Section 41, Victoria District Plan 11955, PID 004927818, for the purpose of installing expanded services at Campus View Elementary. Read a first time the 22nd day of June 2020, read a second time the 22nd day of June 2020, read a third time, passed and adopted the 22nd day of June 2020, and that the chairperson and the secretary treasurer be authorized to sign, seal, execute this bylaw on behalf of the board. All those in favor? Excellent. That is unanimous. Thank you, everyone. So now we're moving to question period, and I did get some questions. So the first one, in regards to the capital plans presentation, shoreline and Craigflower amalgamation, is this a proposal for a K-8 school? Will this mean a reduction of school-based administrators? With the creation of a new model of education for our district, K-8, will there be a focus on indigenization of the school to better serve the area's population, or will the focus be on creating more space for French immersion?
So I can answer a few of those. It will be the 2 schools on the same property, so K-5, and the middle school model 6, 7, 8, designing to have a hub in between that will be a community link connection. We are looking at the French immersion, which goes all the way back to our French immersion review, needing them on that side of town. And so from kindergarten to grade 8, the offering of French immersion in those schools, there is a huge interest in our Indigenous communities to start looking at language programs, bring elders in and enhancing that. And we also have health as a part of this.
Okay, will this mean a reduction of school-based administrators?
The original model is to have, as I said, the K-5, yeah, which would have the administrators, and middle school would have the same.
Okay, so we got a bunch of questions around SLOs, and I can tell you right now that these are questions that we won't be able to answer until the committee has done their work. In the past 5 years, how many students have school liaison officers or other officers ticketed, arrested, or gathered information or intelligence on at SD61 schools? What was the ethnicity, age, gender, and ELL status of those students? How does that compare to the student population? The use of police at SD61 schools is an extension of other forms of discipline that disproportionately targets Black and Indigenous students. What was the ethnicity, age, gender, and ELL status of students suspended or expelled from SD61 schools in the last 5 years, and how does this compare to the student population? And then there's another very similar one. Well, not really. If the board proceeds with the school liaison officer motion as written on the agenda, why does the board believe it is appropriate to allow the program to continue pending the outcome of the review? So some pointed questions, and I do understand. We look forward to the ad hoc committee doing a full engagement process and pulling together all the existing data that we have and searching out more so that we have a better handle on this. I'm not aware of school liaisons ticketing, arresting, or gathering information on any of our students, but I look forward to having confirmation. I don't know, Shelley, if you wanted to add anything?
No, I agree with you. I think there's some definite misinformation that hopefully the committee will help clarify for people.
And then another question, what work has the board done to reach out to and consult with students and staff about the SLO program? Are there plans to do consultation whether the motion proceeds as written or not? Yes, we plan to do consultation. That will be the task of the ad hoc committee. Our board, I think, has a good record with engagement, and so we'll continue doing that. We're very interested in hearing the perspectives of the folks in our community, and we'll be seeking out those voices as specified in the motion too, with special attention to racialized folks. And then, yes. Just one other pointed question. Can the board imagine a future in which non-teaching professionals that are in schools are not those with military arms training, fiscal and psychological investment in criminalization, racist, historical, and current practices, and relatively little, if any, prior training and use psychology or pedagogy? And again, yes, I think I can speak for all of us that we can imagine that, and that's certainly not how we understand the SLO program. But again, we are wanting to do a full review, which is the motion that we passed. And we hope that all these folks that are so passionate about this subject, and I share your concern, that you will be following along and be a part of the conversation as it moves forward. And that's it. Those are the questions that I had. So now we move forward to our public disclosure of in-camera items at G1 through G4. I wonder if there's any questions or if we can move on. Oh, that's it. That's all we have. I don't need to rush us any further. We have 6 minutes. So does anybody have any questions on the aggregate annual student withdrawal report or the aggregate annual student unusual exclusion report? Trustee Rob Painter.
Oh.
I apologize that I haven't tracked this as well as I should, but I was actually surprised to see 6 PRCs and 6 diversion hearings through this period. And I was just wondering if I could get some clarification on which months those occurred, just so that I can make sure I track them for my future records.
I can answer that. That date is from September all the way through. We put it in aggregate so that we can't look at a specific school that may have had a discipline hearing or a PRC or a diversion hearing. but I do have the data.
Chair, with your permission, perhaps this is something that can be provided in an in-camera in the future.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no more questions, I'll move forward to new business or notice of motions. Seeing none, I just want to recognize all of you for making it through this long final meeting. I really appreciate everybody staying focused. We didn't even really get silly, so kudos to all of us. A long night after a long year. I look very much forward to starting fresh in September and all the important conversations we'll have between now and then and going forward. So thank you so much. I really appreciate all of your commitment, and to our staff especially. Thank you so much. Can we have a motion to adjourn? Thank you, Trustee Whitaker. Good night, everyone.
Thank you, Chair.